7 p.m. start.
Charles, you have to unmute.
Oh,
There we go.
where's this going, by the way, Charles? On your website or something?
Yeah, just on my page.
Oh, okay.
Going to hell.
He'll sell it from there.
Is it
Okay.
Jerry Goodwin. Hi, Jerry. How are you?
Billy, nice to see you, pal.
Good to see you too.
Thank you.
Which
Duke
page of
of
it?
madness.
Which page of yours is it on? You have two pages. I don't see it on your just Charles Laquidara page.
It will be on Charles's page. It takes a little bit, a couple of minutes.
It's up now.
It's actually up now. I can see it and hear it. A slight delay.
Larry. I just thought Chachi. Hi, Larry.
Hey, Billy. How you doing, brother?
You look good.
You look good.
No, you look really good though, man.
Thank you. Thank you
No, when
very
you-
much.
when you guys are ready with all your socializing bullshit, I'd like to start the show because everybody's on right now.
It's only 7:06.
How many people are watching, Steve? Do you want to wait until we get 104.1?
We have 103 right now. I think we should start the show. We've been on the air.
Hey, Chachi,
Sound
what's
check.
going wrong? Fred, mute
That's a
yourself.
great idea.
So, Chachi, if anyone ever says you got a Boston accent, don't believe them.
I don't care. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 53rd birthday of WBCN. My name is Chachi Loprette, and we're here with our big host for the evening, a man who's beloved all over Massachusetts, Charles Laquidara. Hey, Charles.
Hey, Chachi. Hi, everybody. How you doing? Listen, this is kind of never been done before, at least by me, and certainly not on a level of a WBCN birthday. So let me just give you a little bit of information. First of all, we have Steve Rude, whose idea this was. So if that doesn't go well, you blame Steve, and if it goes well, then Chachi and I will take credit for it. Steve Rude is up there in your left-hand corner.
And actually, if I could just say a quick something on behalf of the listeners. Is that cool, Charles?
Sure, you planned this for years. Oh,
So first off,
Cake that we can't eat.
so happy birthday. And also, I think I can speak on behalf of all the listeners over the years that you all meant so much to us and made a huge impact on our lives, seriously. And just wanted to thank you all again for everything you did to make BCN so special. Thank you so much.
Wow. Thank you.
Steve-O. Charles, let
Thank
me
you.
get some business in here. For everyone who's
We
watching,
tried.
we're asking you to share this broadcast with your friends on social media. So please share. And you have a comment section there. You can ask a question of anyone on our panel, from David Bieber to David Bieber. You can ask anybody a question, and we will we'll ask them the question and you can answer. But Charles, we're here because we're trying to raise money for the Paul Tanks Ferruza Scholarship Foundation. So that's something everyone should know before we start the fun and games.
I'm posting the donate link right now in the comments on his page.
yeah, and you know what? I'd like to bring Scott Feldman in right now to talk about that.
What the hell is this?
Hang on. What just happened?
I just got a Zoom commercial.
Yeah, me too.
No, I
There
thought
we
that
go.
was the link being posted, but I think that was Steve putting the link up.
That link is for the people who can only hear and not see, is tankscholarshipfund.com/donate.
Yeah, put that up on the screen so we can see it.
I'm going to actually put it in the comments on the Facebook page.
Okay, goodbye, everybody.
Where you going? You can't leave. Where you going, Billy?
Hey, if the creek don't rise.
Billy, say hi to everybody. Seriously, if you're going to leave, don't leave. Just hang for a little bit.
Holiday tables under the tree. And the creek don't rise, the good Lord's will. Goodbye, everybody. Goodbye.
Bye, bye, Billy.
Everybody must just leave.
Did he leave? No, he didn't leave.
Was it
Just
something we said?
No. Hi, Tami.
When do we get to show our ephemera?
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Wow.
That's a 1987 Rock and Roll Expo. There's a whole big box of stuff. I can just keep going.
So I think Billy I think Billy left, but that last thing he did.
No,
Hey,
he's still
Steve.
there.
Still
Right
there.
there.
Billy's right there.
We
You're
can't
not
start.
getting rid of him that easy.
I
Yeah,
was doing
we
something
can't-
I never ever did. Fuck around.
So,
Don't talk smack about him. He's still there.
Yeah.
I remember one time I was sitting in Tony Berardini's office. For those of you who are not familiar with the middle years of WBCN, Tony Berardini started off as a heavy metal jock that we imported to be our music director. He eventually became like a big station manager. And I'm sitting in his office and talking, and all of a sudden on his speakers, he had the radio station on the speakers, I hear me talking to, I think it was Ken Shelton, we're doing a crossover. And I'm saying to Tony, wait a minute, that's me and I'm here. And it was Billy West doing a better imitation of me than I could even do. But,
You
so-
didn't come back for some reason.
no,
He
you
was
were doing-
yelling at you. That's what it was. I could hear furniture being thrown around the room.
Billy, you did Dwayne for about a year without anybody knowing it, didn't you?
I think so. Well, we knew it.
You know what? What I want to do is we're going to try to divide this marathon into two parts. The first part I want to do the strike, and I want to talk about the WBCN strike. And I think I want to start with someone who actually, obviously, if you were there during the strike, you can put up your hand. You know, down the bottom you'll see where it says reactions. Just put the raised hand on if you were there during the strike, because what I'd like to do is have people who are part of that strike, who remember it. And I think I want to start with either Bill Lichtenstein or Sue Sprecher or somebody who remembers what caused the strike, because there's a whole bunch of different, everybody's remembrance of history is different. Like Norm Weiner says he was in the back seat when that girl with the green face story came, when I was trying to get laid. Norm now maintains he was in the back seat on the floor hiding, which I would never have let him come, but that's his version of history. So I need a version of history from Sue Sprecher or Bill Lichtenstein, somebody who actually remembers, was that strike called because I got fired by Lou Ginsburg, or was it called for some other reason by Phil
I think we
Mann?
lost half the audience already.
It was called because half of
It's because of the union.
the staff was fired.
Yeah.
The story was that some sharp New York lawyer told who the hell ever it was that bought the
Mike Weiner and Jerry Karras.
that all they had to do was fire half the staff plus one, and that would break up the union.
Yeah, it was a straight out just wanting to bust the union.
Yeah, that's it exactly. So they paraded us all in one at a time, and it took them about 12 seconds to just say thanks a lot. We'll see you later. And it's my understanding that after they got through, the people that they kept, which was most of the on-air staff, said, fuck this, and then we all walked out. That's the story that I get, that it was supposed to be half the staff plus one, and that would have busted the union, and it didn't work.
That's
the way I remember it too.
The real unusual thing about the union was that everybody from on air to behind the scenes to salespeople.
That's correct. That's right.
In the union.
Everybody. Yeah.
The salespeople ended up being absolutely.
Everyone can talk at once, so it doesn't
because
matter.
they started calling all of their different customers,
Yeah.
asking them to support the strike.
Yeah.
The first tip-off should have been when they came in. We were all, new owners were coming in from New York. We were all excited to see what it would be, some apprehension. And they came in, and preceding them was somebody who started changing the locks on the door. So that should have been the tip-off.
So is John Brody here with us?
I don't believe so.
No, he's checking his prostate.
So I'll take it for John Brody. I wanted him to tell the story, but from what I recall, what happened was we took a vote of the union vote and decided, and it was kind of against all odds. no radio station in history had ever gone on strike and won the strike.
Sorry.
Who's that? Okay.
Yeah,
Hey,
so,
Charles.
that's not my phone. It wasn't my
Hey,
phone.
Charles.
Yeah.
Charles, it's Randy. So I want to back up from where you are. We all got called in and got fired, and the air staff remained. And then we went to Tracy Roach's apartment, and
Right.
you called and you said, "It's like FM. We're going on strike," and then started to play "Everyone's a Winner."
On the
And we all
radio.
went to- Yeah.
And then I remember when the exact moment it happened, John Brody was on the air. And so we called him up and we said, okay, John, we just voted to go on strike. That's it. And so John Brody just ended it saying, this is WBCN, the real WBCN. And we're going on strike right now. So everybody support us and call our sponsors. And that's what happened. And from what I remember, and somebody can help me with that.
I'll tell you, Charles, the thing that was so tragic about it was that there was this great anticipation and expectation with the new owners coming in, because T. Mitchell Hastings had sold the station months previous, and we were kind of existing in a bit of a limbo. And we really were, greatly looking forward to the new owners so that we could have a budget for marketing and advertising and really get the word out to the community. And we were just slapped with this unexpected reality. There was even a large bouquet of flowers welcoming them in the front office. We were at the top of the Pru at the time. And as was mentioned earlier, it was like taking a death march into the office to be told your services are no longer needed. And we were given a check. And Phil Mamber at the time, who was the union representative, said, we were all curious, what should we do? Should we not cash this check? Because if we cash it, is that accepting the reality that we're all terminated? He said, no, cash the check, take the money, and we're going to fight. And I remember calling you, Charles, because you had already left for the day when this was happening. And I said, you can't believe what's occurring here. We're all being terminated. And you were very, very, upset, obviously, and said, we got to meet right away. Let's go over to Chauncey Street and let's get together, where you live. And I said, can it wait till tomorrow? This was Friday. And I said, can it wait till tomorrow? Because the Clash are playing at the Harvard Square Theater tonight. And I don't want to miss that. But it really was just, totally unexpected. And of course, on a legal basis, it also kind of suggests that if you could break a union by just selling a station and taking new ownership, then, that would have been happening throughout, corporate America with great regularity, that, there just would have been shell companies created to terminate one organization and get rid of the union, and then the new owners wouldn't have to be responsible to the dictates of the previous contract.
So we delayed everything, and then it all did happen like 30 years, 40 years later. But
Charles, I don't think it was Brody. I don't think Brody was still working at the station. I think it was. I'm pretty sure that Tony was the last one on the air that Friday night.
I'm positive.
And they had scab DJs all lined up. Remember the scab DJs? Nobody heard from them after.
Everybody, if you're going to talk, please raise your hand. Otherwise, mute your mics because we're all talking over each other. The thing that I remember was John Brody announcing it. Now, if I'm wrong, I'll.
Oh well.
What's that?
If I may, I believe that the one actual air staff loss, and what do I know? I was in college at the time, but the one actual air staff loss during that was actually Jim Perry. And I think he was on the overnight shift.
That's
that
correct.
Sounds right to me. That sounds right.
Right. That's when I took it over.
I want to go back to David Beaver because one of the things that I want to talk about is during that strike, one of the reasons that we won that strike, because, well, there were a bunch of them, but first, I think one of them was that the announcers that they brought in, the scabs, if you will,
Yeah.
who broke the strike, they all had New York, I mean, they had accents. They said, you know, when they pronounced like the Harvard Co-op instead of
Hey,
the
Charles,
yeah.
it's David here. I took over KOME many years later, and that was one of the only stations that they had other than the new BCN. It was KOME San Jose. So when I took over in '83 over there, it was infamous that we were the scabs that sent our staff over to BCN, and that we were hated because we were, you know, KOME infamously were the scabs. And all of a sudden I walk into my new station going, "Hi everybody, I'm David from BCN," and they all look at me like, so that was it. Okay, so go back. That was the scabs.
But you weren't, but David, you weren't the scab. You were like,
no, I was the new guy.
Right,
And
but
so, there was an aura.
So back to David Bieber, because I really do want to.
Charles, I'll tell you what happened was at that point, this was a big economic venture for Mike Weiner and Jerry Karras. This was the third station that they acquired. They had an AM station in Florida, and they had, as David Wohlman just said, KOME in San Jose. And that was their fallback situation. They were heavily invested. You know, they bought the station for $3.4 million, and they gave T. Mitch a kiss in the mail of $50,000 a year consulting fee for 10 years.
Whoa.
And he didn't have to share that with the other owners, the minority owners of the station.
So he took the money and ran, yeah.
He took, yeah, and of course he started showing up to be a consultant. They said, "Stay home and just open envelopes." They didn't want his input.
So,
but basically, what happened was they thought they could. Number one, they thought they could retain the air staff and terminate all the other people, the salespeople, and the office people, and the on-air people were the nucleus of the station. And when the unity of the organization and when all the DJs opted to side with the people who had been fired, that's when they brought the scabs in. And you know,
and speaking of scabs, I remember the second reason the station strike was successful was because the sponsors all dropped out. They, you know, like Jordan's Furniture, all the big sponsors just backed the people who were fired. They backed
Don Law,
the real BCN on, and Steve Strick. What do you remember?
Don Law was one of the last big sponsors to drop out. He stayed on and kept advertising his concerts for a while. He didn't leave like everybody else did at the beginning.
He eventually did leave those.
Yeah, he did.
He eventually did. It was a tough move for him, but he did. So back to Bieber again for the fourth time. David, during one of the other reasons.
For your question, Charles, Tammy's had her hand up for some time.
You know, can I tell you all something about Debbie Oman? So, I'm sitting. We have thousands and thousands of people we have to get hold of, and I'm, you know, going crazy trying to, who do I write to? Who's the DJ? And, you know, when you go up to do an Academy Award, you accept the acceptance speech and you're holding the Oscar and you're crying and you start, you know how they all start crying and they start thanking everyone, you know, they're going to forget somebody. So, and then they're going to make enemies, and those enemies are going to hate them forever. So that's why I knew that when I started sending out invites, I was going to forget somebody. So about 3 days before today's thing, I sent Debbie Ullman an invite because I remember it, and she goes, "What's about time?" Anyway,
Charles, John Brody just showed up. Ask him if he was on the air.
Yeah, John, I got a question for you. Open your mic.
I'm open. I'm open for business. You got an offer.
John, seriously, just quick answer, yes or no. Were you the man who announced the WBCN strike?
Yes.
Thank you. Next, back to Bieber. David Bieber.
Yes.
One of the reasons we succeeded in that strike, the third and I think most important reason, was the musicians backed us up. And one of the musicians that backed us up, like was key. And he put, I think he ran a full page ad. Shred, shut your mic because you're on camera here, and I'm trying to get Bieber. So one of the reasons the strike was successful was the musicians helped us out. Why is Shred okay? And I still don't see Bieber. David,
I'm here. So
There.
let me tell you that, Charles, that Peter Wolf in particular wrote an open letter to Mike Weiner and indicated everything that has been discussed here about the real WBCN was on the street, and the people who were on the air were the scabs, and they were fraudulent and bogus. And one of the key lines in his open letter was, the only scabs that I dig are the ones that are on my elbows. And the beauty of the community response, not only from the listeners and the advertisers who pulled their commercials and that denied the new owners the source of revenue that they needed, but it was also the musical community. There were benefits that were held for the strike people, fundraising. There were ads taken in the Real Paper and the Boston Phoenix from groups like Aerosmith and Jay Giles and Boston and the Cars, all supporting the people who were on strike. It went national, even to the extent of radio and records. There was a full page ad. So, it was widespread. I think they want to talk to Tami.
Yes, Sam.
Tami. No, Tami, not
No,
Sam.
I just wanted to say that the union was United Electrical, not SAG-AFTRA. And
Right.
I think that was a big part of it. And it's worth noting. And also, as Charles and David and others have said, the fabric of the city, BCN was part of the fabric of the city. So the sponsors, the advertisers backed us, as did the listeners. And it was just, I think that was part of the success of this.
It was a big deal. I heard about it all the way in Lawrence, Kansas.
I think that,
No Brotherhood of Electrical Workers.
Charles?
Yeah, the UE in Dorchester.
Can we
Hey,
go
Charles?
back to when we decided on that, Charles? Because I remember shopping around for the right union for us. And we liked UE because everybody could be in the one union and because they were a left-wing oriented
It was
union.
really left wing. Phil Mamber is Phil Mamber. I'm sure is no longer with us, right?
Yeah, I have here
Yeah.
a statement from the union, help wanted, an appeal from the staff of WBCN. WBCN, does anybody remember writing this? The statement has been issued by the staff of WBCN, members of UE Local 262, representing all air and news staff, office workers, salespeople. And it says WBCN is in trouble. I don't know if you want me to read the whole thing. It's kind of long. The staff needs your help. Where did this go? And how did I end up with it?
Peter, that's amazing.
I told you I have a big box of this stuff.
David Bieber, did you write that? Do you remember who wrote that?
I think so. And I do remember that we had tremendous support from other media. There were certainly the college radio stations, TBS at the time.
BCN was on BBC.
Right. The left-hand side of the dial, the non-commercial stations were very supportive. The alternative media, as well as the traditional media, the Globe and the Herald in particular, Jeff McLaughlin, and with the Globe was covering it almost on a daily basis. Dean Johnson was doing the same thing at the Herald. And I think that this coalescing from every direction was really what made it so successful.
I remember, David, that I remember somebody asked me to be, I think I was on BZ. I was on or maybe another, one of our competing FM radio stations. I remember going on in their studios and talking about our strike. So that was a different time.
Well, I'd be interested in Tommy's reaction, because Tami had just, you had just gone over to COZ at the time, right?
Yeah, I was gone by that point, so I don't really have any strong recollections of what happened, during the strike internally. I was across the street at that point.
yeah, I can remember the long caravan of cars, bumper to bumper, coming down Boylston Street when we were striking, and the caravan was so long that it cut off all traffic coming out of Hereford, all the side streets. The gridlock was unbelievable because of this amazing caravan that just blocked the whole of Boylston Street. Unbelievable, unbelievable. Beautiful.
You know what everybody's really sort of not talking about is how friggin' cold it was.
Oh man, never
That's
mind.
exactly what I was just going to say. It was really fucking cold out there.
This is one of the actual signs that was on the picket line. It says they were making signs. They were doing BCN ads, like parodies of them. So this one says progressive rock without the progress. Scab rock BCN. From the
Wow.
actual
Right, David
1982
Bieber,
line.
David, you must be.
I wish.
David Bieber, the Bieber Archives. That's why I have these things.
I got a couple of pictures of Parento and I on the line, and we look so goddamn cold, man. It's simple.
I made a lot of those signs.
Probably.
I did printing, and we were
They're
out there in
very
our silver
artistic.
BCN jackets on the
They're
picket
really
line.
nice.
Absolutely, please.
How long did the strike last?
Stephen Rube, our host, hold on a second, Bob.
3 weeks.
Steve, I got a quick question. Can the people who are watching this on Facebook, can they tell who's talking? Because I know we can look in the bottom and see who. The
Right.
people-
Yeah.
What about
Charles, right now, the way you have it set up, they're only seeing the person who speaks. They're not able to see the whole gallery of everybody.
Should I go to gallery?
That would be great for a while. Maybe go back and forth sometimes, but that'd be great so they can see all the different.
Yeah, because they
people.
probably don't know all of us are here.
But can they tell? Who's doing the talking?
There we go.
Yes, they will be able to.
Okay, I'm gonna go. What's it say? Side by side gallery or side by side?
Side by side.
Gallery, right?
So can everyone see these photos? This photo?
That's on stage at the Orpheum.
Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah.
I have 6 images from the strike I can share with you all.
That's on stage at the Orpheum.
The woman with
I'm getting a drink.
the
I see
woman with
Oedipus
the
there on the left.
the woman with the cap is Karen Cusack. She was a secretary. She was a great friend of all of us. She just passed away a few months ago. I don't know if you guys.
Oh, really?
Sorry to hear
Too
that.
bad.
She had cancer. She was great, but she was a lot of fun.
And this photo is from Eli.
Oh,
This is
nice.
this is the one that had Don Law's crew absolutely hating me because I had the pass and I went everywhere and took every picture. And this was the get the entire staff on the stage, left to right. You know, Tracy's there, Matt, Oedipus. Now I'm even squinting at my own picture. I'm pretty
Is
sure
that
Denny
Doreen?
Schechter is up there.
Wow.
Doreen is probably up there. Bieber's in the middle with the scarf.
Yeah.
Sue, you're in the middle there somewhere.
Yeah, I'm right next to Charles, and Steve is right. Steve Strick is right behind me.
And actually, I'm going to kick a little promo here and say this picture, I believe, Carter, this is in your book
Yeah.
that
Yep.
had the history of BCN. Yeah.
Yep.
Cool.
What was the night of this? What was the first day of the strike? What was the date at 79?
It was 82.
I think it was February 13th.
And this was
Yeah.
March 11th. It was
Okay.
it was supposed to be the second support concert, and it turned out to be a victory concert instead at the
That's
Orpheum.
How long did the strike last?
3 weeks.
3 weeks.
I have the poster advertising for that because us listener line kids were the ones that went around town plastering them all over the place. If you don't have one and need one, David Bieber, I can send them to you.
Oh, love it. I would love it, Peter.
I
That
have
would
a
be
bunch
great.
of stuff, but I didn't know I'd be doing this, so I just kind of pulled it. Like where-
These next photos are from David Bieber's archive.
The extensive archive of David Bieber.
And I think it's worth noting that among other things, there was not this picture, but that's a
Yeah.
great picture. And you know, Tracy and
Tracy,
Oedipus and
Tracy, oh, and Sue.
Sue.
yeah. But there was from probably that around that same time, there was a great picture in front of the Peru that was on the cover of the Boston Phoenix with Charles and
Mark.
yeah, Mark, and there was you know the
Tony.
Mark Perino statue in front of the Peru as well.
Yes.
Oedipus had, he put Oedipus on because there's one thing he did during that strike that was pretty cool. Oedipus, if you're there, can you?
Bob Couts just joined as well.
Yeah,
Oh, good.
yeah, I'm here. I was a shop steward, but for some reason, as the punk rocker, I was also in charge of the dirty works. And there's nothing lower than a scab. And our operatives discovered where some of them were hanging out. So consequently, we sent some of our friends over to investigate. And one of my friends from the scene, a very attractive woman with long, straight hair, kind of like Joni Mitchell, befriended one of them, one of the DJs, one of the scabs, and became very, very friendly with him. So the next night, when he was on the air, we called the listener line, and she's there right next to me. And we said, and I said to him, I said, you were at such and such club last night. You were wearing this, and you were with this woman. And I described her. I described what he was drinking and what she was drinking. And I told him, quite simply, if you want to see her alive again, you will walk off the air.
Wow.
She's laughing her ass off next to me. He walked off the air, and all you could hear on the air was the end of the record going click, 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 click.
It was so funny with their accents.
man.
They didn't have a Boston accent, and they had and they'd say, you know, the way they talked was just, you know, if you put 7 people in an elevator and one of them is not from Boston, that person is going to stick out as soon as they open their mouth. Everybody from Boston is going to know that that person is not one of us, you know, and that was what the feeling when you heard them on the radio, you know, the way they talked, the way they just pronounced the car. And
I got a story from one of there was a young kid who was working for whoever the hell it was in their stations in Florida. It was a Tampa, so they went to station Jacksonville or something, and he was from Brookline, and they approached him about coming up and working on the air, and he was just out of his mind because he had grown up with BCN. He could hardly wait to come up. Could hardly wait. As I recall, he was on crutches for some reason or other, and his father used to drive him down to the station every day because we were looking for these guys, these scabs. They were staying at the hotel, and we would wait outside the door for them to come down to go to work, and we would approach them very gently, of course. Anyway, his father would drive him down to the station, and he would go up the elevator. And he was just out of his mind because he was on his station of his youth, you know, and he was having a hell of a time. And he did not know that the strike was over. And I can recall we came busting through the door. He looked up through the window, and he saw us coming in, and he stood there and he said, "Please, Jesus, don't hurt me. Jesus, don't hurt me." That was the last thing he said. But yeah, the kid that grew up listening to BCN. I have this wonderful picture, by the way. I don't know if you can see it.
Oh, wow.
You know,
What was the temperature that
He
day?
was having a hell of a
the
time.
thing about
He
the
did not
strike
know
is
that the strike was
we had
over. And I can recall I have this wonderful picture, by the way. I don't know if you can see it.
But that's weird.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Charles,
That's
Yeah.
somebody's got a Facebook loop with a couple of seconds
hey,
behind
Charles,
us.
Charles,
I have the wonderful theme.
Charlie Kendall was the program director.
That's correct. Yeah.
And I would meet with him secretly down in the combat zone at the movie theater, and they were showing The Warriors at the time. So I saw The Warriors like 3 or 4 times, one of my favorite movies. And Kendall would tell me about what management was thinking because we were in the process of negotiating with them eventually when looks like we're going to win the strike. So when I found out what they were thinking. So that's just another sideline of what happened during the strike while we're standing out there in the cold. I was in a movie theater.
And Mark Miller and I spent a considerable amount of time calling the radio station, incessantly asking for totally inappropriate songs and hoping that the scabs would fall for it and play like the Stranglers.
Bring on the new body.
Yes, exactly.
We all had the hotline number.
Or the
Because when
disco
you call
version
the
of Any
hotline, the
Given
red
Day.
light flashes.
Yeah.
They would talk, we would call the number. They would like they kept changing the hotline number, but somehow we kept getting it.
I'm going to swing something back if I may just for a second, and there's a connection here because the person who organized the listener line volunteers was Tank. And he set us up somehow. I don't know who did this. I just knew I was there a couple of times. There was an apartment in Cleveland Circle where there was a secret phone number. It wasn't a secret. It was a broadcast. It was an available phone number where people could call in and say, how can I help with the strike? It was staffed by listener line volunteers and others 24/7. And I don't know whether it was Tank's apartment or if he just had a friend of a friend or whatever, but he set the thing up. And I remember going in there a couple of times, and you go in, there's this tiny little studio apartment and 2 telephones. And your job as a listener line volunteer who was not on the listener line was to answer the phone and tell people what they could do to help out with the strike.
Eli, it was Carter's brother, Clint, his apartment.
Oh, Clint set it up because Clint was in charge of the listener line himself at that point.
Because I remember answering phones for that. Yeah.
The thing to me about this strike that I don't think we've talked about was how emotionally intense it was for all of us. There was a tremendous amount of camaraderie among the union and marching outside, and it was the lowest of lows followed by the highest of highs when we got back. I remember that morning, that first morning back, Charles, when we got back, and we had Eddie and I had all these songs ready to, BCN's back and all that. It was just an incredibly intense, rich, emotional time.
Well, Eddie, I remember a story.
Long hours of negotiating at the table. And Charles, you spent your time at the negotiating table too. That was in some bank. It was some big corporate room that just went on for days. So it was exhausting.
But the thing that was so important about the end result was that everyone be taken back and that nobody was left out of the return. The entire staff was taken
Even the
back.
reception.
Then you had to renegotiate your job, I understand. And like a lot of the salesmen were a part of the union, which meant that they were getting a salary on top of any commissions that they made. But a lot of them were laying back because they were getting a salary. And so there wasn't a whole hell of a lot of sales going on.
Jerry, who never crossed the picket line? He was so proud of it. The late great Jack Carney. Do you guys?
Oh, yeah, sure, yeah.
Early years, remember Jack?
But Jerry, the salespeople were very much part of the strike.
Oh, I understand that too. Yeah, absolutely. No, I agree. But I think that was part of the problem with the new management, is that they couldn't believe that the gal, answering the phone was also a part of the union, that we were all part of the union. So that meant we were guaranteed, a salary. And as I understand, the big thing was with the sales staff, because some of them, as I say, they were getting a salary, so they really weren't working that hard to make sales. Now that's just my understanding.
So
what was the name of their lawyer?
Hold on a second, guys. Tank's name came up again.
Yeah.
So Haji, can you and Steve, can you post that link? So
I'll be happy to share the link again.
So for those wondering why I'm here, because the strike happened when I was about 4 years old. I just wanted to mention that I, along with Elaine Pridham and Caroline Shedd, so I mentioned their names so they know they were mentioned, we established a nonprofit, the Paul Tanksferruza Scholarship Fund. During a meeting with Tank right before he passed, and Charles, you were there too, we said to Tank, what do you want to do with what you have? And he told this story that, honestly brought tears to our eyes about the rough time he had growing up. He didn't, go to high school, go to college, get a job and all that. He went to a vocational school. He studied baking. He was driving a taxi cab for a while. He was doing just, low-level jobs back before the minimum wage was $15 an hour. Wait, different story. So he said, I really want to give someone the opportunity that I had, luckily at the end, to get into broadcasting. He said to go to school and study this and, you know, build their career. And we were pleasantly shocked and surprised and somewhat emotional about it. And we said, absolutely, we'll do it. And in the, let's see, December, in the 90 days or so since he's passed, we have established and applied for nonprofit status for the Paul Tanks Ferruza Scholarship Fund to afford Boston students the opportunity to launch a career in broadcasting. I mean, you know, like so many other people are going to say, and they're saying it all on Facebook, I grew up listening to you guys. I was shocked when I later on got to work with you all. I'm sure there's a lot of people who would love to work with you, but it's a hard industry to get into. And it's a fantastic opportunity when you get there. So please, 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 tankscholarshipfund.com. There's a big donate button right on the homepage. You just got to click it. PayPal, Venmo, credit cards, cash, money orders. No exchange for meals though. We don't do that stuff anymore.
Here's the tank.
Yes, definitely Tank. Also hanging over my shoulder is Tank's Red Sox jersey. Batting right, throwing right, playing number 104.
Size XXL.
It was an athletic cut.
Oh, okay.
Is anyone, we're talking strike for a little bit longer, and then we're going to switch over and talk to some of the original members of WBCN. It's so funny, you know, I worked there for 30 years, and I was under the impression, like crazy, I didn't think about it, that everybody knew everybody, that everybody knew the same people I knew. And so when we did that gathering of all the BCN employees at the Paradise, it was like, people didn't even know each other. Like some people never heard of Billy West, and some people never heard of Matt Siegel. Some people never heard.
Never heard of Billy West. Everybody's heard of Billy West.
Yeah,
I
I second
in
that.
this plate.
It was that Charles Laquidara guy we didn't know.
Right. So it was like, and it's like the same thing happening right now. A lot of you people that are up here, the listeners, the people that are following right now that are watching this, you know, they're not sure exactly who you are or what you were doing or what your job was at WBCN. I almost want everybody to kind of say when they come on, you know, who they are, even though we all, you know, most of us know each other. But I see a lot of names here, like Sue Sprecher has been talking about the strike. And most of you probably don't know this. Sue Sprecher was part of the news department. And Judy down there, Sue's looking out at all of us glowingly. Judy Collins' nickname was Scooter. And speaking of Tank, Judy, were you before Tank or after Tank or during Tank or all the three?
I think Tank was in the background when I arrived. Then he came in like full force and he got involved on air. But the way I got on air, I was hired as part of the new regime after Bob Mendelsohn came in to run the sales department and help turn it around. Tony was the GM. And I came in as a salesperson, even though I had a background on air. And Charles, you had another sports guy. I can't think of his name.
Bomber Leclerc.
All right. And apparently you and he had words. He went off and it stomped off. And now you had no sports reporter. And you approached me and said, you know, can you do this? And I said, no, you know, I'm a salesperson. I can't go out and call on these big agencies and get the car dealers and the banks. And, you know, if I'm this lunatic person on air. And you said, okay, well, then we'll just pull all the sports sponsorships. Charles always knew how to play dirty. So then all my people, my friends and colleagues in sales would hate me because there would be nothing, you know, they'd have to give up the money that they earn their commissions on. So the deal we made was that I would not use my real name and that I'd only do it for 2 weeks. And it just clicked, you know, chemistry is destiny. And we had so much fun and nobody knew my name. I did it for, I don't know, 3 or 4 years solid. Then Tank started to come in. He started to take over some of that. Eventually he took over all of it. But even though, you know, here we are, this flamethrower of a radio station with incredible reach throughout Boston, I never told anybody that I was Scooter. So I would go call on people at the big ad agencies or go see sponsors and clients, and they wouldn't know. And they'd say, hey, wow, what's that Scooter like? I'd say, she's, she's great. She's a lot of fun.
I could be wrong.
It was one of the beautiful things about radio and working with Billy and Sandman and Sherman, Whitman and everyone. So terrific.
Judy, I remember, if I remember correctly, I think you were the first woman sports. I mean, it's been a guy's, well, still is sort of a guy's field, but much less so now. But at the time, you might have been the first woman sportscaster in radio.
I think I was, but I will say this: there was Lynn Sneerson at the Herald and the great Leslie Visser at the Globe, who were also out there pioneers and trailblazing. Neither one had as much fun as I did.
Right, and they weren't on the radio unless we had them on as guests.
Right.
Is anyone, we're back to the strike, anyone out there of all of you people has something to say about the strike, something you remember that you want to share with us, you want to talk about?
Well, the only thing that I'll add is that they definitely hired everyone back because I was a part-timer. I had just got hired to be Tom Couch's assistant in the production studio with Eddie. And it was a month before the strike. And then 3 weeks later, I got rehired for the same salary. It just, they took everybody back.
Well, so Billy, you're supposed to come in when there's a pause, when there's any silence, the dead air, you're supposed to.
Talking about a period of time before I was there. You didn't meet the son of misery until 1981.
How did you happen to come to BCN?
I have a Tank story. Tank was a baker, and I think he was working in Faneuil Hall. I think there was a bakery down in Faneuil Hall. Yep. And I remember I was on the air, and this was before doing the overnight show. I was doing like 9 to 2 or some strange shift. And he called and said, "Hi, I'm getting off work. I love BCN, love your show. Can I come by?" And I said, "Sure." And I remember going to the door when the light went on, and there's this monster, huge guy, all dressed in white. He had his whites on, his bakery outfit on, and he brought in he had two bags. He said, "This is for you." One was a bag of croissants that he had just freshly baked, wonderful. And one was, the other one was this massive, huge loaf of bread. And I just, off the top of my head, I started to put the loaf of bread inside with the bag of croissants, just to make one bag. And he went crazy. He said, "Not on my babies, not on my babies." I will never forget that. I reminded Tank every time I saw him. I said, "On my babies," and that was my experience in meeting Tank.
Charles, I got a Tank story. I think Tank hit one of the funniest lines I ever heard. He said, "I didn't know David Bieber was my boss until I read Carter's book."
I have something to say about Tank. Can I say something about Tank? A lot of people don't know Tank was actually a pool shark. And I think at low times in his life when he was looking for some cash, he was able to go in and fool people into thinking he didn't know how to play pool. And he made some money that way. I think some serious cash.
One of those places. Oh, sorry. By the station.
Pool players that do that.
Probably.
What is that word when a pool player pretends he doesn't know how to play pool?
A hustler.
Dead.
Yeah.
I don't know if this was true or not, but supposedly when Tank was at his peak as a pool shark, that he was traveling around the country and had his own railroad car and was that wealthy and that successful. And I don't know if he may have been in the mold of Jackie Gleason in that role of
Mississippi Fats.
Minnesota Fats.
Minnesota Fats.
Yeah. But
wow.
He was extraordinary and apparently got quite wealthy doing that.
He was
Tank gave me this play.
started. He came in, as Jerry said, he came in as a answering the listener line.
Yeah, yeah.
And he would come over, you know, during the sportscast, and every now and then he'd hand me a note saying, you know, this guy here, and it was like the idea of having a sportscaster that wasn't cool and you know, didn't wear a jacket, and so, like a guy who was like when you're at a sports bar and there's somebody at the end of the sports bar who's just loud and he's saying, "Oh, for Christ's sake, they should fire that guy." You know, that was all of a sudden I thought, hey, this would be a great sports guy, not just a regular run-of-the-mill sports guys you see on TV, you know, this. And so that was, and Tank knew more about sports obviously than I did. And so, as Scooter said, that's how Tank eventually, Judy became more involved in the sales thing, and Tank became more involved in the sports thing and became the sports guy. So
I have a Tank story if you want to hear it quick.
Yes.
Yes.
Folks, forget that Tank was the producer of the lunchtime concerts, which was a pretty big deal. And I worked a lot with him on that. And it was a great image to come into a club, say, what was the Metro at 10 o'clock in the morning, along with some major artists who didn't feel like getting up that early. Cyndi Lauper is somebody that pops to mind. And I have this image of Tank sitting at one of those little cocktail tables, black tables, at 10:30 in the morning, laying down the law to Cyndi Lauper how it was gonna go, because those were introed and outroed live, and the timing had to be just right. So he'd be telling these major artists, "Man, I don't care if your song is not done or not. You're done at 55 or whatever it is." And he made that happen. He was great at that.
Yeah,
that's my story.
And also what I remember most about Tank is his warmth and his kindness. And I'll never forget that. So
yeah, he was a cool guy. Can you put up that link one more time, please?
He was the first van driver too.
Yeah, he was a van driver.
You know, that he was really rough and tough, but I also went to the ballet once with Tank.
Yep.
He had a whole different side to him.
Tank was a big, can I say pussy now?
And if you want to,
soft-hearted.
Previous president used it, I guess I can. Yeah. So there it is, Tank scholarship, and but I don't see the website there.
Charles, there's a Tank story that you're not telling. Charles, there's a Tank story that you're not telling. Did he not introduce you to Roger Clemens shortly after Roger Clemens first came to Boston?
Exactly. When he walked,
and he predicted his greatness.
He walked in with this guy who had a real Texas accent, and he said, Charles, this guy's going to be big one day. And so we had, the Red Sox had just drafted him or hired him or whatever they do. And so Roger Clemens came on the air with us first before he was even made his first pitch. And he was like, eventually, you know, became like super.
When we were cleaning out and sorting through all of Tank's stuff, the Roger Clemens things that he had, the really personal things, all of these birthday cards, Christmas cards, baby pictures of Clemens' kids. I mean, they were definitely tighter than people realize.
And all his kids had a K at the beginning of their name.
Correct.
Yeah.
And Tank was also great, you know, in terms of other areas of the station above and beyond being on the air, or, you know, there was so many people at the station whose talents overlapped into other departments. Tank, for example, when we were doing a marketing campaign and TV commercials for your show, Charles, about all these different people who were waking up on the big mattress, and the identities were concealed in the TV spots until the covers were thrown off. And Tank specifically got for us Kevin McHale and Roger Clemens. You know, could have been tens of thousands of dollars in fees, but they just, because it was Tank, they waived whatever they would have charged anyone else, and they just did it for the sake of the station and for Tank. And you know, people that we had in that campaign, in addition to Kevin McHale and Roger Clemens, were Steven Tyler, and if anyone remembers, Norman Nathan as well.
Charles, as you can imagine, I've got a million tank stories.
I'd like to hear one, Bill.
We were in Norway for the Olympics. This is us with a gold medal winner.
I forgot about that. Holy shit.
And one of my favorite tank stories from that particular trip, there was Lillehammer's a little tiny town, and it only had like one main street, and it had 2 inches of ice on it. So about 4 times a day, the Norwegian government would put about 2 inches of sand on top of it, and everybody would walk all over it. So we're there for the first morning, and Tank is kind of, doing his thing, lumbering along. He's like, "Billy, this is ice under me." I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Do me a favor. If you see me start to slip, don't try to catch me."
I thought he was going to say, "Do me a favor, Bill, you go first."
But yeah, what a guy. I mean, as Tami was saying, heart of gold, and I miss him tremendously.
Yeah, my 2 sons both have Roger Clemens signed baseballs, courtesy of Tank.
Yeah.
Well, it's close to 8 o'clock. It's my bedtime, folks.
Gary Goodwin, thank you very much, my man.
Nice to see you all.
Thank you, Jerry.
Bye,
Jerry.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry.
Wow, Jerry Goodwin.
Have a
Good
good
to see you,
night.
Duke.
Thank you.
Wow. Duke of Madness.
Night, Jerry.
So let's switch on over now to a different topic, and let's start with Joe Rogers. Let's just put yourself on the screen. For those of you again who were introduced to BCN, who came on to BCN like maybe in the mid '80s, the late '80s, the '90s, you might not know who this man is, but Joe Rogers was the first WBCN radio announcer when WBCN switched from classical music. They weren't making any money, so T. Mitchell Hastings decided to try this rock and roll thing. And I guess when BCN went live, it freaked out everybody. It's too bad Ron Dellacase was supposed to be with us today, but his wife Choyce is a little bit under the weather, so I guess they couldn't make it. But Joe Rogers, Mississippi. How many different names did you have, Joe? You had Mississippi Fats, Mississippi
It started as Mississippi Harold Wilson, because he was Prime Minister of England at the time, and that seemed like a funny thing to do, but the Mississippi part just stuck.
So this guy that you're looking at, the driest sense of humor in the world and the most incredible mind. We used to, the early people that started BCN, Steven Seagal and myself, Sam Kopper, we would sit around, maybe getting high, maybe not, but whatever. We just sit around and listen to Mississippi Fats, listen to Joe Rogers talk, and we never knew where he was going to go with it, because he was very, I don't know, just the way you think, the way you talk and stuff is so, I don't know, it's so cool. Anyway, when you started BCN, they went from classical music. Joe, I'd like to hear it from your point of view, like what time it was at night, and also what was going on around you. Was Ron Dellacase actually in the room with you, the classical music guy? And also the legend is that you started off with Cream, I Feel Free, but in actuality, the first piece of music you played when you put that needle, remember they had records, was not I Feel Free. So tell us about that whole thing from your perspective.
Well, the reasonably short version of it would be it was on the Ides of March. It was at 10:30 on that evening, and Ron Dellacase was there, and he was doing the semi-classical show, and he had no difficulty in the handover, and the handover was yes, the first music that was played on our shift, as it were, was some Mothers of Invention, some Frank Zappa doing some sort of farting and belching sounds for a while, and noises, and then eventually the I Feel Free Cream tune. And the studio was packed with people, curious people, the new group coming in, including especially Ray Reapin was there, and
The owner of the station, or the manager of the station.
and Tami was certainly there, and so and an assortment of people there. Peter Wolf was there because he was doing the show, the shift afterwards. I wouldn't have been the first, except that there's a fluke of the a random fluke of the scheduling, so that it turned out that Friday night was going to be my shift. So there it was.
Ron Dellacasa was saying that all these hippies came in and started taking down the pictures of Beethoven and taking all the photographs of all the classical. Is that true?
No, there was no desecration. We were quite respectful. We had no idea that it would last. We thought we were temporary guests just because the classical station could not sell any advertising from 10:30 until past dawn. They had no sponsors, and they resorted to, and Ron can tell you the story of asking for money on the air to keep the transmitter going. So.
And Tommy Hadges, you were there, and were you a dentist at the time? What was going on with you? How did you become a DJ?
Sorry, I had to unmute myself. Excuse me. So yeah, I was pre-dent at Tufts at that point because it was March of 1968. I didn't graduate from Tufts till 69. If I can just say one thing, because I want to make a link with the previous group, because we're part of the prehistoric group, not the modernish day group. But the UE kept us tight. And I want you to know that, of course, all the original people were also UE members.
United Electrical.
We're still trying to get some sort of a pension from those guys. So if any of you have any suggestions as to how to do that, we know SAG-AFTRA was very, very, they would just throw money at people, but I don't think UE has ever done that. So if anybody knows anything, you can.
Yeah, they owe us some money, don't they?
You would think.
I did research that recently. It is public record. You could find out too. These are union records that are public, and the bank account of that union at this point has something like $47 in it.
How many of us are there here? Wait a minute, that's like a 50 cents each or something,
or $1 or whatever, $1.04, I should say. So anyway, what was the question?
About you, and you were going to college. What, you weren't supposed to be a dentist. How'd you end up?
I was supposed to be a dentist, but you know what? This opportunity came up. We had a Tufts radio station where it was just on campus. It hadn't gone FM in those days. It was called a closed circuit AM that basically broadcast through the pipes of the dorm rooms on an AM dial. But we would let people play whatever they wanted to play. Joe was another Tufts mate, and other people that weren't necessarily at Tufts, that were in the area that wanted to do their thing were invited. So J.J. Jackson had a show there, and many of the people transferred over when Ray Reapin went looking for people. He looked for people at the Harvard station, at the MIT station, which was there, which is how we got there through a connection. MIT had a ton of engineers, but nobody wanted to be on the air. They had a glass partition between where the engineers sat with all their equipment, and then a little miserable room where the announcer would sit. And that's where Ray heard us and was basically looking for people who didn't sound like DJs, and we fit the bill perfectly. We were like completely as non-DJ as you could possibly be. And that's exactly what he was looking for. Wow. So we would, it was right place, right time.
Was he looking for low-cost engineers? They happened upon you instead, maybe.
Who was our first engineer? Was it Sassy John?
Sassy John 10 Thumbs.
Yes.
And Michael Ward.
Yeah, I didn't come in until late '68, so I wasn't really part of the first wave of BCN announcers. And I remember when I get on the air at BCN, I'd come from Los Angeles, Pasadena radio. And I remember when I did a commercial for the Harvard Co-op. I sounded like the scabs that took over BCN. I said, yeah, the Harvard Co-op, and the phone lines all lit up. You go back to fucking Los Angeles, California. And it was like, and to make matters worse, no one at BCN had, to my knowledge, had been playing a group, Arthur Lee's group called Love. And, you know, the little red telephone.
Little Red Book. My Little Red Book.
Red Book.
Yeah, my little
Alone Again or.
Red. I think,
Again.
7 on 7 is.
yes.
Who set the scene?
And then
Yeah,
the
he said
song that was covered by everybody,
Epic.
even the lead singer of Led Zeppelin. What was the song? And Alone Again or, which
The Damned did a cover of it.
Never changes.
So I played Love, Song by Love. I think I made the mistake in Boston in the daytime, midday guy, substitute. You know how they treat substitute teachers in school? Well, figure what happened. So I played this really, you know, orange skies, and it was orange sky, blah, blah. And the phones lit up. What the fuck? Go the fucking back to California, you know. And I'm thinking, holy cow. Anyway, it was
That was a top 40 hit for them. I think that was their only top 40 hit. Orange Skies was the hit on the record.
well, I don't think
Charles, when you found out Tommy was in pre-dentist, did you try to score any nitrous or anything like that?
you guys remember that when I put nitrous in my car in a BMW?
Yeah. So it would go really fast.
Hey,
Yeah.
can somebody explain something
Ken's
for me?
still with us?
I need somebody to explain. Tommy Hadges, I think Tommy Hadges was talking about it and talking about like getting the DJs from MIT and MBR. Is that how Oedipus came across? Like I never knew that story.
Well,
And then
Oedipus, what you have to give Maxine Sartori the true credit for Oedipus, because she had asked him to do some stuff about the new music, since we didn't know what the hell, you know, was going on with that whole scene. And he was doing reports during her show. And I was in a shift where, I mean, I had two basic shifts. I was doing 6 to 10, or I was doing 10 to 2. So I was always bookends around Maxine, who had the fantastic afternoon drive show. And that's where I started to hear Oedipus, knew that we needed to do something. By that point, it was 1978. I'm sorry that, oh, there he is. Oh, he is back. Okay, good.
Good.
If I say something that's wrong, please correct me. But as I recollect, in 1968, he was doing those things for Maxine, and I said, hey, you really should do a show with us. But yes, Eddie was on, what was it called? Demi-Monde? What was the name of the show you had on?
It was the Demi-Monde and WTBS.
That's right. So it was before.
It was the Nuit Blanche before that, and you're right, when Maxine drafted him. Boy, it was like a farm club, Tommy. I mean, there was Oedipus and Carter and myself and Albert and Carla Nolan, Tami, Carmelita.
And all of that was with 10 watts.
Yeah, absolutely.
But Tommy, you hired me. You hired me,
Did you
Tommy.
start with Charles Oedipus? Was that your?
Yes, I started as a volunteer writer for Charles. I was never his intern, but I was a writer for Charles.
He wants to make sure that he never was.
Well, I remember the interview when Charles and I interviewed.
Really?
I would get Charles coffee if he bought. Okay.
Which never happened.
Oh no.
You buy, I'll fly.
Stephen Strick, when you were at the station, what era were you at BCN? Because I remember you sort of helped me with my last radio show that I did before my cocaine splurge.
Did I help you snort lines? Is that what happened?
No.
Chopped them up.
No, my first time, I was lucky to have two experiences at that radio station, and the first one was in the news department with Sue Sprecher and Danny Schechter, and that started in 1978, and that was quite a 3-year experience, because I learned a lot about life, along with politics and everything else. You know, I just wanted to stop and say one thing. I'm looking up at the screen of all you people, and I'm getting a little choked up because you were talking about the strike and why we won. I think one of the major things that was true about this radio station, and all of you were part of this, was the passion that it generated in the city of Boston with everybody, listeners, sponsors, whoever. We were very much part of that city, and we all contributed in our own way, whatever we did to the sound of the radio station. And I feel so fortunate and lucky to have been part of it and to have gotten to work with most of you. I'm just very grateful.
Same to you.
Here, here.
Yes.
I second what Steven said.
Huge.
I second that emotion.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Sam Kopper had
Amen.
his hand up, by the
I
way.
have a history
Sound
question
of
for
Boston.
Sam
Joe
Kopper.
Rogers.
Yeah.
Joe, so.
No,
if
that's
you could
not Sam
straighten this
Kopper.
out,
Where's
on
Sam
March
Kopper?
15th
Have your hand up.
is the first
Right here.
broadcast, right? When did BCN go full time, and how long was it? Just 6 hours? Wasn't it just midnight to 6?
It was only months, and I mean, they made so much money in the overnights that they just said, we're crazy to continue not doing this. So then it became weekends. It was just weekends,
Oh.
and then it
Wow.
expanded on from there. So it was literally. Someone will remember the
I can
exact
tell
month that
you
it happened.
fairly precisely because
Yes, sir.
I
Yes,
came
sir.
back from Syracuse, where I was going to majoring in radio and TV in March, and I heard the station and I saw the signs all over Beacon Hill, and I got totally enthralled by it and sent Ray about 6 or 7 tapes of folk shows I'd done, documentaries and all this sort of stuff. And then I come back to Boston. This is where I can nail down the date pretty closely. It was a Thursday, mid-May, because I didn't have any exam. I had one exam that year. Walter Cronkite spoke at my graduation, which I missed because I was on the air by then. But anyway, I come back and I hear Joe on the air saying, we're going full time on Monday. And this had to be either the second or perhaps third Friday day. So that's when it went full. And called
So
Ray.
the station is playing classical music most of the time, and then midnight to 6, it's either Joe Rogers. It's a rotating cast like we have on college radio. Somebody does Monday, somebody does Tuesday.
Yeah.
It was a little more regular than that.
It was actually from 10:30. It wasn't precisely just the overnight, but as Joe said, the reason that he was on there is because when the schedule was put together, he had the 10 to 2 shift, so that was his shift. And Peter did 2 to 6, right, Joe? Isn't that true?
Peter was after that. Yep, he did. He would go till dawn.
Did you do Did you do crossovers with the classical music Morning Man?
We did. Yes, we did. We did crossovers with whoever was on before 10 o'clock. Yes.
And that was.
Well, by the way, but when I started doing the morning show, I came. What preceded me after Peter got off the air, or whoever was doing all night at that point, later Al Perry, it was Brother Mandus.
Oh yes.
Mitchell Hastings was real into this.
Right.
Fairly out there.
Spiritualist.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And then later it was Jimmy Bird.
That's right.
Exactly.
Early Bird.
Early Bird.
Right.
I followed
Early
Early
Bird.
Bird for a long
A different approach towards spirituality.
Indeed.
Hey, listen, you
I
got.
followed him on Sunday morning.
Can I add something about the early day of BCN in 69 and 70? I was a student at Boston University working at WBCN, and
the guy
Gamache had just left and came over to BCN for a while, and that didn't work out. I had known BCN was going crazy at night. But I started doing a folk music show, and at the time, I was also a junior at BU. My teaching assistant, who was the head of my class section, was Ken Shelton before they promoted him to captain. And Clark Smith was hired to be the promotion director or at the station, and he hired David Bieber. David had shown up from Ohio.
Cleveland.
Pardon?
Cleveland.
No, from southwestern Ohio, because he was in not Kent State, the other one, Miami of Ohio. And he came to Boston to be a graduate student, and we ended up being roommates for a summer. And then Clark hired him to do promotion for WBUR of what they called the third program. And so Ken, Shelton, and David would come over at night and hang out at my show, which eventually evolved from folk music to more rock and roll and jazz and all kinds of other stuff, and then free-form mixing. And at the time, we thought that what BCN was doing was as wide open as could possibly happen on radio. And that's one of the things that I think made it so distinctive, was the creative freedom to do stuff and still make a buck at it, you know? And it wasn't just Joe Rogers and a bunch of people just coming on and announcing. It was the kind of music they were playing and the sets that they were, you know, juxtaposing different kinds of music, different artists and so on, which really spoke to the listeners. And based on that experience, David started having benefit concerts. Who was playing at some of them? Bonnie Raitt played at one of the benefit concerts. Oh God, this was when Elton John first arrived in the East Coast for his first East Coast appearance. And he came up to the show at BUR. And so people like Charles and Joe and Norm Weiner and Crazy Al Perry for sure would come up, because we were able to do things because we didn't have commercials that BCN couldn't, because they had to have commercials.
Yeah, fuck you.
Pardon?
I remember that BZFM had no commercials for years.
And BZFM, you know, was a formatted thing because it was all on computer, but it was because
And
of
Shelton will have a comment on that for sure.
David's collection was already starting to sag the floors of his apartment in Somerville at the time, as I recall. But it was based on that experience that Ken Captain, you know, was promoted to captain and moved over to BCN, and then David came over to do promotion. And for those of you who came later than that, that era, 68, 69, 70, 71, really set the foundation for what could be done as in commercial radio and making a commercial success. And I think you all ought to recognize what well, I'm sure you do, what Ken and David did to help create the foundation of the blooming flower that WBCN became, thanks to all of you.
Not just in Boston either, but around the country, really.
Indeed, indeed.
Yeah, and Ken, when I would listen to Ken Shelton's show, it's like I thought musically, it's like this guy has such, it's like you have like an encyclopedia of music, you know, in your brain, and to listen to the songs that you would pick, Ken, and the way you'd describe the music and stuff was pretty, you know, it was like.
You were right, Charles. You were right. I was an encyclopedia.
I want to say.
By the way, everybody, Ken Shelton is with us right
He
now.
has great producers, by the way, just to let you know.
Let me finish here for a second. Ken Shelton is with us right now. And unless he's on real heavy drugs, he's in heavy pain because he just had, what was it, Ken? Back
surgery, yeah. Mild, I'm down to mild. They won't give me the heavy drugs anymore. But
you did enough of them years ago, I think.
Hey, Ken, I can pick you up, man.
When I
That's
got
why
to
they
a certain
changed his
point,
name.
when I got to a certain point, they said, "Well, I'm sorry, you did your lifetime's worth between BCN and coming out of the hospital. That's no more drugs for you."
Now we need the nitrous, Ken. We need the nitrous.
Oh no, that was back in the dental days.
You know, I want to get to Steve Rude, who's responsible for Steve. You can hear me okay. Unmute yourself and tell me, because most of us are not looking at what's going on in Facebook itself, which is a 20-second or so delay. How many people have we had watching so far?
Chachi's actually been monitoring the comments, but we've had about 355 people.
So do those people, are any of them asking, hey, who's that talking? Who's that? What did that person do for BCN? Are people curious about that? Because we we could actually change the way we're doing this, and as people come on, they could tell people, you know, who they are and what. Like I'm looking at Tom Couch, and Tom Couch was one of the great production guys, and I think nobody, you know, most people don't know who he was, but he was, without guys like those production people, it would be like our shows would have been kind of, you know.
How many people were in the production side doing the bits and the segments and the Mighty Lunch Hours and all that kind of stuff? Was it just like a handful, or was there like a
Raise your hands, guys.
Each show?
Production people?
Well, there were people who worked, you know, different times of.
Oh,
Tom, you're
just
unmuted.
muted. Sorry,
Tom, you're muted.
Tom, you muted yourself. Yeah.
Okay.
Unmute yourself.
Yeah, there you are.
There were different people there through the years, like Tom Sandman followed me, and Steve Lushbaugh was there before me, and Michael Fremer, who I saw earlier, was there, and of course Billy. You know, we all kind of overlapped a little bit, but there was not usually a large crew working at the same time.
Well, Bill
I was really glad that Tom Sandman followed Tom Couch, because I only had to remember like one name.
But there was such a large body of work that you guys created outside of like the music that the DJs were playing, whether it be ads or promos or montages and mix-ups and all that kind of stuff.
Songs.
Yeah, it was endless. You had
Thanks to
created so much.
Oedipus. Thanks to Oedipus.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thanks
he
to
encouraged us to play. He encouraged us to you know, come up with something silly and just chase it down and get it and do it, you know.
He was a harsh taskmaster, I'll say that.
No, it was an anomaly.
They paid us for it, and they allowed us to do that work for other Infinity stations after a while. So it was really came from the top.
You know what I want to do? I want to switch over for a second, because I think as this goes on, I think there are some people have already dropped out, some of the people on here. And I before they drop out, I want to point out Charles Daniels, not the country guy, but the guy down in the corner. Charlie Daniels, can you unmute or ask the person who's helping you with the tech support to unmute you and tell everybody a little bit about this guy? Could write a book. Because when I first came to Boston to work, Tommy Hadges knows, Joe Rogers, all of you early guys know for sure about Charles Daniels, whose AKA was the Master Blaster. And when you went to any concert ever in Boston, at the Tea Party, the Paradise, whatever all those clubs were, this man was the MC, and it was like he was famous, more famous sometimes than the groups that he was introducing. But Charlie, tell us what that was like back then.
Well, you know, the whole music scene back then was really fresh. There was a lot of craziness going on at the same time. I think the energy of all those English bands that were coming to the States for the first time, when you saw someone like Led Zeppelin or The Who or you know, just everyone, the whole scene was just really getting to be really wild. And Peter and what I was doing at BCN was actually Peter's show. Peter Wolf that I'm talking about, was actually his show, and I used to just hang out with them and kind of like make it a little crazy. But music at that time, the whole street scene. I can remember one time when Alvin Lee from 10 Years After, whenever 10 Years After would play the Tea Party, Alvin would always come in like a couple days early, and we'd hang out together, because I was in the photography, he was in the photography, and we'd just like kind of like cruise, hang out on the streets and stuff. And he was sitting in Boston Commons one day. He had that red trademark guitar, his, sitting in Boston Commons, and he was playing his guitar. He had like a little portable amplifier, a little pig nose amp, they called it back in those days. And so he was just sitting in the Commons playing music. People were freaking out because at the same time he was getting ready to play the Boston Gardens, like evening later on. But now he's sitting in the park just chilling out. And so what happened was we started walking down Newbury Street towards BCN, and I was carrying a little amplifier, and Alvin was playing his guitar, walking along Newbury Street, going towards BCN. We walked all the way down Newbury Street, off to Boylston Street, got in the elevator, went up to BCN, and he never stopped playing his guitar. And he just walked right in and said, "Hey," you know, whoever was on the air at that time said, "Hey, Alvin Lee just walked in with the Master Blaster." And so we did like a whole little interview on the radio station after we walked from the public gardens. And
it was so great,
played
Charlie,
music.
because, Charlie, we JJ Jackson, our JJ, the one that worked on BCN, the great JJ Jackson, he broke Led Zeppelin. He played the first. He was the one that was responsible for Led Zeppelin's success in America. You know?
JJ was totally in the Led Zeppelin, you know. He was a super Led Zeppelin fan, you know.
On stage, you introduced them. You brought them on.
And so, you know, I also, one of my, you know, aside from some of the people who just classic people that I announced back in the day, you know, when Hendrix played the Boston Gardens back in the day, they came to me and asked me, because a lot of people knew who I was, you know, would I be interested and willing to announce Hendrix at the Gardens? And so I said, wow. Yeah, I think I could do that. I'd definitely be down with that. So, but one of the craziest things about it was Hendrix at that time, he had more stuff on stage, more amplifiers on stage than anyone. And I was used to just talking for a few minutes at the tea party, maybe telling a story or two here and there. But for Hendrix, I had to talk for almost an hour while they set up all them amps on stage, because it was really old school, and you had to patch them amps up one by one to the next one to the next one. And I just ran out of things to say. And I just kept saying, who's here from Springfield? Who's here from New York? And a lot of friends of mine who were taking acid at the time had taken acid thinking that by the time they started tripping, Hendrix would be out there. But I was still talking and they were really confused. So, but actually, you know, just being a part of that whole scene back at that particular time with the Tea Party coming to life and all the bands coming to Boston, and the radio station, like Charles said, there was a period of time that you could walk down Calm Ave or any of those places, and every radio station would be tuned to BCN. You could go down a whole block and just hear nothing but BCN playing, no matter where you went. It was just it was like the thing in terms of music and what people listen to, and it was just such a crazy, wild, wonderful time to be into music and to be chilling out and to just be. And I was just glad to be a part of it. The Tea Party was just like really live action. And I'll tell you another little story. Jeff Beck, who played the Tea Party one time, and Jeff was into hot rods, into cars, and so he asked me if I knew where he could get some of them big wide tires for his car. And I said, "Oh yeah, I know a place where I can get you some tires." And so the next day, I took him over to Ellis the Rim Man over on Calm Ave up by BU. We had a place called Ellis the Rim Man that sold all kinds of hot rod parts and stuff like that. So here we walk into this place with Jeff Beck, and so he's looking around, and so Oh, and this guy came up. I was hanging around outside, having a little bit of smoke of a jib, and this guy came up in this kind of like old hot rod, like a tea, like one of them tea roasters you see like in the old movies. And so the guy was coming in to buy some parts, and I saw Jeff, and I said, Jeff, check out this guy's car, man. And so Jeff looked at this guy's car and totally freaked out. The guy was freaking out that Jeff Beck was looking at his car. And to make a long story short, Jeff hooked up with the guy, and he ended up taking the guy on tour with him, and the guy worked on a lot of Jeff's cars and stuff. Jeff brought the guy back to England to work in his garage and hang out with them, and he took him on tour with him, and he hung out with them for like a lot of years, and it all started out from Jeff going to Ellis the Rim Man over there on Palm Ave to get some big wide tires. So
Charles Daniels, it's Tami Heide here, late 70s intern for Charles, and then mid 80s through 91. But I never knew that you were Master Blaster. I just always heard Peter Wolf say, Peter Wolf, Wolfa Goofa, Master Blaster. And I just, so thank you for sharing your stories.
Yeah.
Charles, you should tell the story about how you and Peter named each other.
Oh, what?
Well, I used to call my Peter. Peter used to always say that he could do anything, and I would say, yeah, I'm the Master Blaster. Anything you can do, I can do it a little bit faster. So. And I started calling him the wolf, or the wolf, or the wolf of gopher, and he just, and then the master blaster stuck, and to this very day, when people I know that are still left around from the day, they still know the blaster. Blaster is still alive and well and doing it, and so I can remember. I was hanging out on the Cape one year with a couple of ladies, and the police kept kind of like messing with me for some reason. And then one day they
think it was because you were black.
I think that had a lot to do with it, but they didn't really like my lifestyle. I was kind of wild and crazy. So anyway, the police set up this roadblock on the highway to try and see what I was up to, and I ended up getting busted, and they put me in jail down in Barnstable. And the judge didn't like hippies, he didn't like people with beards, and he didn't like black people. So I felt like I was really in trouble. So they had a big benefit at the Tea Party to raise the money to get the blaster. I sat there in jail for almost a month, and Don Law hooked me up and get this big benefit. You get the blaster out of jail. He's jammed up down there in P-Town, So they got me out, and I came back and had like a big coming out party at the Tea Party when I got out of jail. So there was a lot of good stuff. The energy at the, between the bands that were coming to the Tea Party. I had a friend of mine, a young lady who when Led Zeppelin played the Tea Party, she really wanted to meet him, and so I actually ended up with hooking her up with Mr. Zeppelin, and she thought it was just like a really hip thing to sort of hook up with someone who was starring at the Tea Party. And I think at the time he was sort of into witchcraft or something. Jimmy Page was. And to make a long story short, I don't know what happened with them after they left the Tea Party, but he ended up I think he had her tied up in the woods or something. He was into black magic or something. And next day she said, I don't know what you got me into, but I don't never want to hang out with that guy again because he's crazy, you know.
Well, Charlie, thank you so much, man. It's great to hear these stories. I'm looking around at the gallery here and I see a fellow calls himself the T, and we're talking to Mr. T. Unmute yourself because I want you to tell us. You probably have the most adventurous. Didn't you get hired and fired and jailed? Speaking of, and,
I've been in some of the finest jails across this country, Charles. I did a tour, as a matter of fact, and yeah, Philadelphia, Indianapolis, every place. They were always hassling me. But no, I had a great time at BCN. I grew up with BCN. I grew up listening to BCN. I grew up listening to all of you, Tami, Charles, Saxophone Joe, everybody. And so it was always something in my mind that I wanted to come back to Boston. So I did get to do it, you know. I got canned, but I did get to come back, you know. I had a ball. I had a ball for the years I was there.
That's great to have you around. Ellen Laquidara, I put you on. Otherwise I'll get in trouble. So unmute yourself. And are you going to do I should be asking Billy West to do something, an impression, but he's probably sitting there hoping I don't.
No, I'm being respectful. I love everybody here. I'm being respectful.
Ellen, do the ad that made you famous and made you notorious, actually, more than famous. What was?
You mean the dictaphone?
Yeah.
Hello? The dictaphone. That was our best commercial ever. I was driving home one day from the station and I had to pull over on the side of the road because I was laughing so hard at myself. Yeah.
We had her doing, we had my niece Ellen doing this horrible, gross commercial. Don Bertolini, you can unmute and you can help Ellen out.
Don, you were there when we were producing it.
Well, we did a bunch of them, but you know, you were Fuzzy Dice Clam. I don't know if people realize we created a character that was the female antithesis of
Andrew Dice Clay.
Andrew Dice Clay. Of course, someone who won't be named her Fuzzy Dice Clam instead of Andrew Dice Clam.
Oh my God.
But you don't laugh. I mean, it was one of the most popular characters we had. We would get requests for it. And Lance and I would look at each other and go, we have to write this again because people just wanted to hear it. It was that bad.
A lot of fun. It was bad. It was fun though. I had a good time. I wrote a lot of it myself too.
You
so yeah, really dirty.
From personal experiences?
Yeah, absolutely. You remember all my backstage passes? I mean, hold on. Here's me and Gene Simmons. Hold on.
Uh-oh.
Oh, that's a heavy a hairband freak. You still?
Oh, huge. Oh yeah, still am. Yep.
Hey, Charles.
Let's see. Going around the horn here. When you talk, please introduce yourself to the people that weren't through all 5 eras of WBCN. Lisa Traxler, did you start to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask Charles if you had seen the thing I posted today. I found a piece of production that was never released before. That was written by Mark Waldstein, one of your writers on The Mattress, that I produced years ago. And I sort of, I used it as part of a resume piece for me later on. And I found it on a cassette and I just posted it today. Did you see that?
No, can you play it now?
I don't think I can play it on this. I'm not sure how I would, but it's on Facebook.
I saw it. Yeah, just look at Lisa's Facebook.
I could certainly grab it and funnel it through there. I'll work on that for a second. Charles, Chachi had some feedback for you.
Yes, if I may say a few words, Charles. I just got a text from Peter Wolf, and he says, I'm driving back from Maine, catching some of the show on the phone link. He has 3 questions. How did Crazy Al get his name? Does anyone know what happened to John Sass? Is that how you say his name?
Sassy.
Plus, I had a huge argument with Ray Reapin, who insisted that the first days of BCN was in the back room with the Boston Tea Party.
I think Joe Rogers can answer the last question. Tommy Hadges can answer the last question.
True.
Well, definitely the station began on Newbury Street, up on the 5th floor. You go, the elevator went up 3 floors, and then you would climb up the last 2
Yeah,
flights.
but Reapin was saying, Joe, that it began at the Tea Party before that.
No,
No,
I don't-
definitely,
I don't
definitely.
I don't think Ray Reapin is making that claim. He was in the room.
No,
The Tea Party definitely began in the back room. The BCN definitely began in the back room of the old Tea Party, because
That's not what they're saying, Charlie.
when the radio station was on, you could hear the bands in the background.
I think I can correct this, okay? The first broadcast started on the 5th floor of Newbury Street, no question about it. Then they panicked because they didn't want the hippies in the building.
Oh, right.
And when we went to full-time on weekends, it definitely moved to the backstage at the Tea Party, no question. And Charlie, you're exactly right. Master Blaster knows. You could hear the noise. In fact, they'd be coming right behind us. So sometimes we just ask them to say something on the old microphone there, because it was literally where they were. They were just getting prepped. Our record library was in a closet that was there.
The DJ studio, was it Spit? This was isn't Boston Tea Party what Spit became Spit after a while?
No,
It was
Peter,
the
actually, the Tea Party was on East Berkeley Street originally.
I heard it was on Lansdowne, so I didn't hear the right thing.
Later on, it moved to 15 Lansdowne, but originally it was on East Berkeley Street.
It was in a synagogue.
Hey,
right?
that's where the DJ studio was, where a concert is in the city.
They moved the Sparta board into backstage. So that was the studio, yes.
That's right. And when it went full time in May, in the middle of May, we came back to Newbury Street. As far as how Crazy Al got his name, Peter was arriving at the station to go get to do a show with his entourage. And lo and behold, as he was getting off the elevator, because you took the elevator up to the 4th floor and then walked a set of stairs up to the kind of attic barn. And so he gets to the bottom of the stairs, and tumbling down the stairs to his feet is Al Perry. I mean, is John Sassy, the chief engineer.
Al Perry threw him down the stairs.
Al had just thrown John down the stairs, and Peter goes up and goes, "You're crazy, man." Crazy Al.
It wasn't John Sassy who got punched down the stairs. It was another employee at the station who was associated with the classical music, and he and Al were having an argument about whether it was a good idea or a bad idea that these hippies were coming, and Al was defending us. And they got angry, and so yes, and I can say, as I was carrying my records up the stairs, this engineer came tumbling backwards down the stairs. Al was at the top of the stairs and said to me, "It's okay, you can go through."
Those were the days.
I should correct it. Thank you.
Those were the days. Hey, Charles, you were talking about voices in ads. Can Michael Fremer? I mean, I just remember so many Michael Fremer voices from the early days. Are you willing? You're unmute yourself.
Well, I just found something I did to make fun of Joe Rogers, and I wanted to play that.
All right, love it. Go for it.
I hope that he opened a sandwich shop, and when he did that, every time he got on the air, he talked about his sandwich shop, and he snuck it in so that it didn't seem like it was too much. But I hope this will come over. Let's see what happens. Hopefully it'll play. Can you hear this?
No, make it louder.
Things are going to change around here. First of all, I want to assure you that just because a former WBCN disc jockey owns a restaurant, namely Mississippi Soup, Salad, and Sandwich Shop, is no reason to plug it incessantly on this radio station. I'm sure that the Mississippi Soup, Salad, and Sandwich Shop does fine for itself without this kind of stuff that I've heard in only being here for 2 or 3 days. So visit the Escargot Clod Shop across from Mississippi Soup, Salad, and Sandwich Shop, or down Fenway Park near Kenmore Square, 1.8 miles from Mississippi Soup, Salad, and Sandwich Shop, or this one, I saw the biggest pothole I've ever seen in Boston. It was, you guessed it, across from Mississippi Soup Salad and Sandwich Shop. I want to assure the listeners that plugs, contests, giveaways, and commercials will be held to a minimum. That includes Mississippi Soup Salad and Sandwich Shop. By the way, I want you listeners in Needham, is that how it's pronounced? To be able to hear us better tonight. We reoriented our transmitter last night. By aiming it at Mississippi Soup Salad and Sandwich Shop in Kenmore Square, we were able to get much better coverage. Well, the nice talking to you. Jerry will be back right after this. Yes, you don't have the discipline to learn guitar the ordinary way, not motivated to practice till your fingers bleed, then you should enroll at the Guitar Sweatshop. And here's great news. At the Guitar Sweatshop, when you sign up for one course, you're forced to take every single course. You'll play 24 hours a day till you get it right. Whether you dig the sounds of James Taylor or George Benson or Segovia, when you graduate from the Guitar Sweatshop, you'll play like Uriah Heep. Just believe me.
Anyway.
That's great.
I was,
Great stuff,
Michael. It's playing again. I was there to make fun of people at the station when they got too serious with themselves. Wait a second. It won't stop. It won't stop.
Michael, hey,
Yes.
Michael.
Yeah. I'm trying to stop this. Wait a second.
And you put it in a
Hey, Michael.
Yes.
Michael did a great impersonation. He may have been the only person who did an impersonation of Danny Schechter. I think he called him Danny Hogg, the news frog.
Michael,
Danny Hogg, your news frog. But I also did a lot of other people. I did Jerry Goodwin, and one time I did a sketch for Charles's thing where I was making fun of Don Law and Order's club, the Paradise Club. And the way I did the sketch, at the end of it, I made like I was Jerry Goodwin, cutting myself off. And I went, "Oh, this is Jerry Goodwin, and I'm going to stop this right now because it's not funny." And people called up and complained to Jerry Goodwin, "How dare you cut Fremer off?"
So
Can you hear
Charles,
me now? Charles, is my mic on here?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, good. I didn't realize Michael was there. I just I had to give props to Michael. I was a big fan of Michael before I was on BC. This is Ken Shelton, by the way. Before I was on BCN, I used to listen to Michael, who at that time was a part-time weekender, was a production guy, was one of our all-around utility guys, without whom WBCN never would have been the great station that it was. You can name the big guys that made BCN famous: Charles and Matt Siegel and the other early greats that were there. But Fremer did things that always stuck in my mind. I had to bring up in our era of political correctness.
How many times did he get fired, Ken? How many times?
Well, the one time that he got fired, that I think was the final time he got fired.
The oh shit broadcast.
What's that?
The oh shit broadcast.
No, this was the.
I got fired for the shit and stuff and like. I did a routine called the shit and stuff and like Institute, and Charles and I had this thing. I had two things going. I had one crazy thing going that I wanted to see if I could push the envelope, and then there was a safety one that was in the vault, and that if they played this before it went on, and it was like, "Oh, Fremer, we can't run that. We have to run the safety one." Well, one morning they forgot to play what I did. And it was the first morning that Charlie Kendall was the program director. And Charlie Kendall is driving in, and he turns around, "Oh, this is the Shit and Stuff and Like Institute. And this is where you learned how not to stay." I went to the movies and stuff, and the car broke down and shit. And I was doing a good thing. I was trying to show people how not to talk like that. But it didn't work out well.
Well,
Right.
the thing that I remember the most that had me rolling out of my car or around my bedroom, whatever it was, you were just coming on to do a weekend shift, and I think it might have been the first International Women's Day show.
Look, I got me fired the first time.
Was that the first time that you got fired?
Norm took care of that one.
I thought it was the last time you got fired, because you started you did this whole thing about it's International Women's Day and what a wonderful idea, and then you go right into James Brown doing "It's a Man's World."
Well, what happened is Norm said, my show was the first thing on after a whole day of International Women's Day, first International Women's Day. And Norm said, don't touch it with a 10th, don't touch it, forget about it. And I had to touch it. So I just went on and said, welcome to the men's room. We will play men's music, Herbie Mann, Manfred Mann, the Johnny Mann Singers, Man's Rick Moore. We will have a special shaving hotline. Greg Allman will show you how to make that little thing under his chin. But that was too much. So
it was impeccable timing. And it was the first and last time I fired you, Michael. And
I know.
I regretted it, but you were asking for it, man.
I know. I had to do it. They were expecting it, so it's fine. It worked out great.
But I still, to myself, many years later, I still sing to myself, Lou Reed went to Syracuse University. One of the great record spots you did.
Yes,
Does anybody remember BCN had a funny weatherman? Stuart Soroka.
Stuart
Soroka.
One of the great things about the early days of BCN was that everybody there got fired at least once, and then
I got fired every April Fool's Day for about 5 years in a row.
Charles fired me.
I got fired by Arnie for smoking dope in the production studio with Stephen Kane, who ended up, that one actually was enforced. The day Dan Ellsberg turned himself in, I came back to tell Stephen what had gone on at the court. And
Somebody actually got fired for smoking dope? Because
oh yeah, well, Arnie Ginsberg is looking from Norm's office at Stewart Street through the production room, and the dope was so good, and I was so stoned at that point that I turned around, and in the moment I saw Arnie's face looking at us, horrified, and then turned back to Stephen, it didn't occur to me that that's how much time it would take for Arnie to come around and walk into the room. So with my back to the door, I'm saying to Stephen, put out the joint. It's woo-woo, woo-woo. and Arnie, of course, is right behind me. Fires Stephen on the spot. That was unfortunate.
He fired me too, Bill.
And he died.
He fired me, and I was like 14. And this is I grew up. This to me was Charles. I grew up listening to this guy, and I just stood in his office, and he said, "You're going to have to leave. We can't allow this." And I couldn't even speak. I just tears started coming down my face, and he said, "Well, I can't allow. Don't let it happen again." and so I go back, and I'm like shaking. I'm trying to answer the listener line. And Charles hears about it and grabs me by the collar and goes, "I got to talk to you." And he pulls me into one of the offices, closes the door. He says, "I just heard what happened with you and Stephen and Artie." He says, "I just have one thing to say to you." I said, "What's that?" He said, "Don't ever cry in front of a pig again."
Hey, Charles, you need to tell the story about Clee Dobra firing you and Dwayne.
Yeah, well, again, Dwayne Glasscock had a show on Saturdays from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And Dwayne was my alter ego. I guess everybody knows by now, but we never used to admit that. And
he was?
Wait, really?
Still is.
Really?
Come on, man.
Actually, Lisa, Trax, I swear to God, most listeners at BCN for the first few years didn't know that you and I were the same person.
I'm always amazed at that, but yeah, they still don't.
So we always referred to him in the third person. So Dwayne doing this show, and he talks about how, and those of you who don't know much about radio and ratings and stuff, in the ratings industry, in the radio industry, if you get like a number 3 or number 4, that number relates to how many people, thousands of people are listening. And number 4 is a great number. It's a good number to have, because then your sales staff can go and say, "Hey, we got this many people, we got a 4 rating." And the people that did that was called ARB. So Dwayne Glasscock goes on the air one Saturday, and he says, with his Boston accent, there's these big fat guys with the cigars, and they drive around these big black Cadillacs and smoke their cigars, and they're down in Beltsville, Maryland, and they have this company called Arbitron. And Arbitron, those Arbitron guys, they gave us a rating, and when they give you a rating, if it's a low rating, then you get screwed. All the disc jockeys get fired, and you can't sell commercials, and your radio station turns like into crap. So this Arbitron guys, they gave WBCN a 4. And of course, back in that day, a 4 for BCN was an incredibly good number. So, but Dwayne, and they only give us a 4. And then my show, and Dwayne consistently, and I think Carter Allen will back this up, every Saturday from 10 to 2, Dwayne Glasscock would get a 10 or 13. It was a 13 consistently every Saturday. So that being said, so Dwayne goes, and they only gave me a 13. And, they're up on top of the Prudential. We're in the 50th floor. And look at those. There's 4 phone lines right up. That's 4 people. And then there's 20 people outside in the skywalk looking at us. So that's 24 people. And they give me a 13. These people are liars. They're big, fat cigar smoke. So everybody send them a bag of shit. You take a bunch of shit. You can take your dog shit, or you can take your own shit, and you put it in a plastic bag so the mailman won't get his fingers dirty, and you send it to Arbitron Research Bureau Box 1411, and that's in Beltsville, Maryland. And you do that, and Dwayne did that every break for the entire show from 10.
Oh my God!
Hey, could I just throw in? I was in the Burlington Mall that day walking around Middle America. Dwayne was on the PA in the whole mall. I mean, what a different time when this guy's on the air. This Dwayne's on air in the Burlington Mall telling people to send shit to Maryland. It's unbelievable.
So now comes Monday morning.
Damn.
Now comes Monday morning. Charles Laquidara is on the radio. So I'm on, and all of a sudden, the door of the studio opens up, and station managers, like the big VIPs, are never supposed to go in and interrupt your show. If they got stuff to say, they always wait till after your show because they don't want to screw up your show. Well, the door opens, and at the time we had a manager who didn't wear socks. He had boat shoes. I think he owned a yacht. This guy was as waspy as you can get. His name was Klee, Klee Dober, Dobra. Klee Dober was for a few years the manager at WBCN, and really kind of like just what you'd picture for a waspy rich white guy. So he opens the door to the studio. He goes, "Charles, I want to see you after my show. After your show." So after my show, I go in and I sit down, and Klee Dober is holding a cup of Dunkin' Donuts that's like a super giant sized cup of Dunkin' Donuts coffee, and it's so hot, but he's stirring it with his finger. He's so pissed off. He looks me straight in the eyes, and you see the veins are bulging out of his neck and his forehead. And he goes, "Now, Charles is the consummate disc jockey, a professional and valuable to the radio station. But Dwayne Glasscock is a fucking asshole, and he is fired." And I go, "Please, you can't fire Dwayne. He gets a 13 every Saturday. You can't fire him. That's crazy." He looks at me, takes a sip of the coffee, and he goes, "Are you talking with a full deck? You know that you and Dwayne are the same person." And I said, "But you just fired him and you kept me." Anyway, Dwayne got fired for about 3 weeks, and then whoever was the owner, T. Mitchell Hastings, or whoever owned the station, just overruled him, and Dwayne came back. But yeah, that.
And if I can add,
Tom
Charles,
I walk in, and Charlie Kendall is there, and Charles is looking at Charlie Kendall, 7 o'clock in the morning. "You're fucking crazy. You're fucking nuts." So as I recall it, Charlie fired you.
That was a different thing. That was not for Dwayne thing. That was a different.
Okay.
Yeah, we got fired a lot.
And then later that day, Charlie got fired. And then later that day, Klee Dober got fired, who fired Charlie. And then T. Mitchell Hastings called a meeting at the end of the day and said, "Whatever happened the last 24 hours didn't happen."
Right.
Hence my point of
Well,
view.
there was that funny
There was a
line.
lot of firing going on.
John Brody.
There was a funny line. This ties into what Charles was saying, because I got fired a lot, mostly by Al Perry when he was GM and we were in the Pru. And so somehow
I'd get upset and I'd tell somebody, they said, no, they can't fire you. And somebody would go in and stick up for me. 2 days later, Al would hire me back. So it kept going like that. And then I don't even know what I did, but Al calls me, says, you're fucking fired and I'm not rehiring you under any circumstances. It's not going to happen. I go, oh man, you sound serious this time. So I stopped by my mom's house on Beacon Hill, just kind of craning my beer. And she goes, hey, let me show you something I got in the mail today. And I get, there's these, because there are other people in the building, and she picked the whole bundle up, and they were all from Arbitron. And they were diaries. They keep track of your listening habits that equal ratings. So I look at this, and they're like 10 diaries. I'm going, oh my God.
Wait a minute, explain what that, John, explain what that means to the listener.
So those numbers that Charles is talking about came as a result of Arbitron's system, which ill-fated as it was sending out diaries to listeners, just average people. They would fill out their listening habits on this thing on a weekly basis, Monday through Friday or Monday through Sunday. And really, they'd send these things in, and that would determine the numbers for all the radio stations.
Yeah, and one diary would stand for like 100, maybe 200 people.
Exactly. I mean, a huge number of people. It was just like a micro, the thinnest cross section you could imagine. So I leave these diaries and I go, thank you, Jeebus. And I go, next day I go in there and I said, he says, you don't work here. I said, you might want to rethink that just for a second. And he goes, there's nothing you can say. Over, finito, kaput. I pull the diaries out and I throw them on his desk and I go, how about a little conversation? He goes, I don't fucking believe it. Where'd you get these? I go, that's not the point. I got them. So he goes, wow, this could be big. And the last book wasn't so good. So he said, so, okay, maybe I could bring you back. And I said, I want a better shift too. I'm done with all nights. I got to have something. I got to have something that just isn't disturbing to my entire lifestyle. So anyway, Al welcomed me back and Saved by the Bell.
I think it was around that time that the SWAT team overnight on the weekends happened. This is Tami, Heide. And it was me, Eddie Gordetsky, Eddie Gordetsky, Rick Varney, who was a traffic reporter, and Tom Couch. And we had fun on the overnights.
You know what I want to do is I want to switch over to the man responsible for all of those incredible, legendary April Fool's parades that BCN would do every April Fool's Day. And maybe Tom Sandman, you can tell us a little bit about, like, were they really real? Was there a parade? Like, a lot of people really want to know where that parade was, because some of the people couldn't find it. In fact, no one seemed to.
It was all mines, Charles. We built those floats with splicing tape and cartridges, and it was the endless tape cartridge loop that really made the Fool's Parade, because you could have a marching band playing all day in cart machine number 1, and that was it. If we had that, and then we had you throwing it to people, or Ken would throw it to people who were pre-recorded. Yeah, I'm here, Ken, and we're having a great time down here in the parade. With the marching band music, people thought there really was a parade, but we were beneficiaries of so many creative people at the radio station. Everybody chipped in. The news department, Katie Abel did bits for us. Scooter on sports, and the sales department did some of our bits. It was hilarious. We had a lot
cars, there would be lines of cars driving all around trying to find out, because you would actually name addresses where the parade was, and people would go there, and it was, oh, they moved, we moved up to Boylston Street. We're in Harvard Square now. We're wherever.
Quick question. So without getting too deep into Dwayne, who was Network Norman?
I don't remember.
Norman.
Can someone help me with that?
He was a kid that came in very briefly, and he called himself Norman Abadowski.
And he
talked like this.
There you go.
I don't know why he didn't just do what I'm doing good. He used to do it with his mouth.
Thank you.
His name is Norman Babowski. Genius.
So Charles,
Can I say one thing?
sure, go ahead, Bob.
There, Charles, earlier today, someone did an in memoriam piece on
This is
Facebook.
Rocket Bob Slavin, everybody, one of our great DJs. Yes. What?
Earlier in the day, there was a in memoriam on Facebook for some people, but there are some people that really we all should remember. And when you start talking about voices, Kenny Greenblatt's voice was unbelievable doing the Buzzy's roast beef ads. And Kenny was such an integral part of the station from back then. So I think Kenny, and of course you mentioned Jack Carney as well. You know, these are people that really, I'm sure there's a long list, but I think of Jack, I think of Kenny, I think of Susan Wolf. There's a lot of people that came through those doors that it'd be nice to remember and to realize.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you.
Right on.
Thank you.
And
you very
in
much.
Kenny's honor, heavy.
No.
And Carla Wallace.
Mustache.
Carla Wallace.
Yeah, that's true.
And he had a handlebar mustache. You were heavy. And Charles, forget about Tchaikovsky, man. He's lightweight. You know who's cool? Mahler. And he twists that mustache of his.
Well, you know, in the
Charles,
age of transparency,
here's a picture of a couple people. One you were trying to locate. It's Joanne Fitzgerald and also Daryl Martini, the Cosmic Muffin.
And Sue Sprecher. And then
And Sue
behind
Sprecher.
Daryl is his husband Ed.
And there's Ed Bozell. And that is from the 1993 party at the Hard Rock.
Wow.
The 25th anniversary of BCN.
Yeah.
And I have a great Daryl story. Daryl would come in once a week and he would record all of his reports in one day. And then, so he wouldn't have to come in, 2 or 3 times a week. And it was always on Tuesday. So he found out from somebody that Little Richard was going to come to the radio station.
I remember this.
Yeah, I remember it too.
He was so excited. He came in, did his reports early, and sure enough, Little Richard walks in and Daryl goes, "Hi, my name's Daryl. They call me the Muffin." And Richard looks him up and down and says, "I eat muffins for breakfast every day."
There's Kenny on the left.
Little Richard, the self-proclaimed king and queen of rock and roll.
That's funny.
Daryl
Hey,
would
you
have
guys.
given this Zoom and Facebook Live a 10 for sure.
Yeah, for those of you who came after Daryl left us, every morning he would do, the astrology report, and the way that happened, the way he got his name is, I used to read on my morning show. I used to read from the news, from the Boston Record American or Herald, whatever it was, the little tabloid. I'd read the horoscope. And one morning I read the horoscope and this guy calls up and he goes, "No, that's not true. Mercury's retrograde." And he starts going on and on about all this stuff. He said, "You're lying to the people." And so I said, "Well, why don't you come in and do it?" So Daryl came in and he started doing the reports, and the name Daryl Martini didn't sound like radio enough. So we wanted to give him a name like Tank, Paul Sarusa. We wanted to give him a name, well, he's a big guy, we'll call him Tank. So Daryl said, "Well, what do you think we should?" And at the time, the National Lampoon was really, very well played on BCN. So the National Lampoon had a thing called Deteriorata. On your grandmother's hanging thing, that's the Desiderata, walk softly among whatever
Go
that.
placidly amidst the noise and waste.
Yeah. So the National Lampoon did a takeoff on it called Deteriorata, and one of the lines was, somebody help me here, like you are nothing but a cosmic muffin. And
yes,
and I said, "Daryl, how about you be the cosmic muffin?" He said, "That sounds great, Charles." He's got his little glass.
Charles, I think the line was Hairy Thunderer or Cosmic Muffin.
Or
something like that, right? Is that right?
Dog getting enough cheese.
We were the, and that song and that line, later
Hey,
used in a
Charles.
rock song by a guy named Henry Gross. But Charles, I think you sped through that story because I know that recollections sometimes elude you. But
You were not
basically,
on the floor, the back seat of my car during the green face story.
you're right, Charles. I was sitting on the seat. I was not on the floor. I would never sit on the floor of your car. I know what's happened in the back seat of your car. Anyway, the thing is that, and there were no hazmat suits then, but we were making fun of astrology in general. You and I doing a crossover, traditional DJ, patter between attempted witty banter between a morning show and a midday guy. I was the midday guy, old saxophone Joe, and an astrologer called us. Daryl can complain about us casting aspersions about the merits of astrology, and so we accepted his challenge. We gave him our birth data, and he did both of our charts, and he fucking nailed it, both of us, without any idea what we're doing. We couldn't have been more cynical, and we said, well, I was the program director. You're hired. Boom. And I subsequently hired Daryl in San Francisco and in Chicago, where he sold out clubs.
I was on a radio station in Santa Rosa.
And I hired him in
They
Los
had-
Angeles.
Yeah, he was on in Santa Rosa. I was on a radio station there. I played him all day. He was on a loop.
He was a phenomenon. He was a
Daryl
phenomenon.
Monsoon became so famous that what's that little game with the cards, trivia? He actually is on a trivia card. Who is the card?
Wonderful man and our great friend. Wonderful
Yes.
man.
Indeed.
Very much missed. He was a great guy.
So Charles,
Speaking
of-
oh, I'm
speaking-
sorry, Rob.
well, since people are sharing photos, I have some photos that Sam Kopper sent me and Eli and a few others. I'd be happy to share those with everyone, as well as I've a 4-minute clip from 1982 holiday Christmas with all the DJs and production personnel.
So here's what I think you ought to do, Steve. I think you ought to play that as the music bed as you're showing the photos.
Yes, exactly. Is that all right?
When will that be? Some
I-
future date?
No,
Or
right now.
Okay, so what time is it on the East Coast?
Come on, guys. Come on. Share the road.
Sam, what time is it? Sam, where's Sam Kopper?
No,
Well,
it's
it's,
6:16 here in California.
There
we go.
There's Eric Jackson. There's Sam Kopper. There's Ron. There's Carter.
We got Ron Della Chiesa and Eric Jackson, Sam Kopper, and Carter Allen.
Right.
Give me a second. ladies.
Everybody drink when you see a girl. Debbie knows what I'm talking about. Tammy knows.
Yep, I know.
Carmelita
nobody's
knows.
blinking here. Nobody's
So can you hear
By the
this?
way, Debbie Alman was
Hi, everyone. This is Tom Couch. You may know my voice.
All right.
And Italian.
So here's from 1982 Christmas montage.
Go for it.
Hang on as we start.
Happy holidays, Boston, from all of us at WBCN. Hi, everyone. This is Tom Couch. You may know my voice, and you may not. If you don't, you'll have to guess who I am. But in any case, do have a Merry Christmas from everyone here and me at WBCN Boston.
Hi, Merry Christmas from Scooter on Sports. And remember, life is like the games we play. You fight hard to keep ahead.
Girls!
It's really not whether you win or lose that counts. It's whether you cover the spread. Merry Christmas, everyone, from WBCN Boston.
Hello, this is Mark Miller, and I'm the music director of WBCN Boston. And I spend most of my time being yelled at by the general manager, being yelled at by the program director, being yelled at by the disc jockeys, yelling at the disc jockeys, and generally being berated and beat up by people from record companies. But in spite of this, I'd like to wish you all a very happy holiday. Can I go home and go to sleep now?
Hi, this is Eli. Who cares? I'm one of the small cogs in the wheels that help make WBCN Boston what it is. What it is! I'd just like to wish you all a healthy holiday and a Happy New Year. Happy New Year!
Hi there, this is Bill Cates, the sub-genius radio producer of The Big Mattress here on WBCN Boston in the mornings. And I'd just like to wish all of you a very wonderful holiday and a 1983 that is filled with as much slack as you need.
Hi, this is Casey. This is Lucky Louie and Milkman Jack. Hello.
Laundry be clean. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year from WBCN Boston. Raz here. I'm sure you've said, if I hear one more person wish me a Merry Christmas, right? Well, here goes. Merry Christmas from the bottom of my little WBCN Boston Raz on a radio heart. Yeah.
This is Brad, the new guy at Radio 10-4, and so far, this is the best Christmas I've had at WBCN Boston.
Hi, I'm Carmelita, your weekend warrior, WBCN Boston, wishing you a happy Christmas. And if y'all have money left over, give it to me and have a Happy New Year, too.
Hi, this is Meryl, wishing you a happy new year. And oh, damn it, I hate it. I hate it.
Take two.
Hi, this is Meryl, wishing you a happy holiday and a great new year. And I hope you get an Arbitron diary next year and fill it out with WBCN Boston.
Hi, this is Oedipus, program director of WBCN Boston, and also punk rock DJ. And if there's anyone out there who would like to have my daughter in 1983, please get in contact. Married to you all.
Hi, this is Carla Nolan, weekend DJ at WBCN in Boston and the cutest in the world. And I want to remind all you guys out there to buy your girlfriends very expensive presents.
Hi, this is Dave Wohlman, disc jockey here at WBCN Boston, also a member of the production team. And I'd like to share with you on this Christmas Day a story that Grandma Wohlman used to tell all of us Wohlman kids on every Christmas right around this time. It goes something like this.
Okay, Dave, that's 13 seconds. Thanks.
I am the ghost of Christmas past, wishing you a very Merry Christmas here at BCN. And the fabulous thing about Christmas at BCN is that some people deck the halls with boughs of holly, and others here just love to don their gay apparel. Cool Yule all.
Hello, this is Tony Berardini. I'm calling from 1983, and wait till you get here. It's going to be an incredible year. Happy Metal New Year from the Rock of Boston, WBCN.
And Stimson, my van is still broken.
Hi, this is Bob Mendelson, WBCN's General Sales Manager, wishing the happiest of holiday seasons to our listeners, our advertisers, and everyone else who makes possible the craziness known as WBCN Boston. Am I on?
Hello, I'm Mark Dupre, and I'm in the WBCN sales department. I didn't really want to do this, but the guys kind of talked me into it. Okay, to twist my arm, I'd like to wish everyone a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year from WBCN in Boston.
Hi, this is Margaret Perkins from the sales staff at WBCN in Boston. Joyeux Noël, Feliz Fiestas, Fröhlicher Neujahr, Buona Festa. That's French, Spanish, German, and Italian for Happy Holidays, Boston, from all of us at WBCN.
And that's hang on.
That was great. That was great. Can I want to credit a couple of photographers there. First of all, a couple of those shots from the top of the Prue there, Mitch coming out of the roof of the Prue. That's
I always
Peter's
thought that was a
garden.
coffin, Charles. I always thought that was a coffin.
It looked like a coffin, but Mark Kruger took all those shots at the 50th dinner party we had 3 years ago. Mark Kruger.
You know what? I'm watching that. I don't know. I get kind of all fulled up. It's kind of sad seeing a lot of those people are no longer with us. Seeing Team H. Hastings and Tank and Paula, Nolan, Darrow.
Arnie Ginsberg died last year.
And Dwayne, didn't Dwayne die?
He almost did. During the Dwayne plane, we were going back to Lawrence Airport, and suddenly the engine stopped. It was a single engine plane flown by Wayne. It was Wayne's Dwayne plane. Kind of scary. Anyway, a little splutter. We ran out of fuel for a split second. He switched tanks, but Dwayne survived. And
thanks to Dr. Klaben.
Yeah, we saw Roger Clemens with his wife Debbie. Some of those pictures were pretty. Wow, just all kind of flashbacks there.
You know who we haven't mentioned thus far is Mark Parento.
Oh my God!
Buzzard mate was such a huge force at BCN in many ways.
Nice one, Billy.
Oh, boys.
I'm useless. Buzzard mate.
Hey guys, I'm going to be jumping
Can I
up.
say something?
Sure.
Can I say something? So my first paying job at
Laura Grover, everybody. Laura Grover.
Yeah. So I started out. I won a contest to be on the air with Ken Shelton for an hour, and that was how I started at WBCN. And it was so terrifying to be in that headset and know how many people were listening. But I was thrilled beyond belief. And my first paying job was doing the beach remotes with Mark Parento. Paid $5 a remote. But it was so much fun, and like the people coming out, and it was like BCN was the biggest celebrity in Boston. In its
Laura, you got any good Parento stories?
What do you mean by?
Well, what was it like working with him? I know that sometimes he could be really what's the word? Well, put it this way.
Parento-like.
Yeah,
Oh,
parental.
we were good friends. He was very nice to me, and he used to have dynasty watching parties every Wednesday night at his condo.
How cool.
I visited him in New York and he put me on WXRK just when he was doing his show. XRK.
Yeah.
No, he was on the classic rock station. But
Q104.
Right,
What?
Q104.
Q104 in New York.
Right.
The great thing about Parento is that he still lives on YouTube, and you can hear, for example, even before he was at BCN, when he was at WABX in Detroit,
Right.
a great interview with him and John Lennon. And even in the studio at BCN, there's a great piece where he's sitting with Jon Stewart. And there's no question what Mark contributed to the Boston comedy scene, you know, with the 505 comedy segment. And it was like absolutely imperative that every comedian who came to town, from Sam Kinison to Jerry Seinfeld, stopped at the show repeatedly every time they were in Boston. And he was never one to really upstage them, but he could go toe to toe, one-on-one with them, and was equally as funny. And he was just a terrific, clever, thinking on his feet all the time.
He was a wonderful disc jockey, beyond disc jockey from the point of view of producing the live broadcast from the Paradise and elsewhere. That man on stage in front of people, he bloomed even bigger. He was really great in person.
I remember one of the great stories, and Sam, you're going to be the victim here, but I think you know the story. Is Sam? When we had that BCN gathering of all the workers at the Paradise, it was like, we wanted to bring all the announcers up, Joe Rogers and Tommy Hadges and Mark Perino and whoever, just to introduce them to the audience. And so I had told everybody ahead of time, kind of short, just to 1 minute or whatever. So Sam, we knew when we saw Sam going up on stage that he was carrying like a ream of papers. So we knew that Sam was going to be up there for a while. So Sam started talking about the history of BCN and all the good stuff, but it was going on and on. And Mark Perino comes from down on the floor. He comes up on stage with his microphone. He says, "I got this, Charles." And he just comes up, "Thanks a lot, Sam Kopper." And it was like
Mark the hook.
I have a
Billy will verify this.
I have a
every
good
day about-
Parento story. Oh, I'm sorry, Tom. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Dave.
Billy West and I went out to lunch, and we're driving back to the station on Newbury Street, and the windows were down. It was the summertime, and we hear a loud scream coming from the side, Exeter and Newbury, and it's somebody screaming. Billy, do you remember Louise?
No,
Louise.
we thought he was yelling police.
And it wasn't police.
He was going, police, police.
So it was Louise, and I go over just to see, and I go to the right lane, and Billy looks at me, he goes, "That's fucking Andy Kaufman and a neck collar screaming Louise." So I said, okay, right. I got out of the car. I double parked in front of I go, "I'm from WBCN. We're the big radio station, Andy. We're right around the corner. You want to find Louise?" And he says, "Yeah." And I said, "Get in the car." Okay. And Billy looks at me and goes, "I can't fucking believe it." Yeah. We drive to the station, and Billy has him in the lobby. I go into Parento. I say, "Do you want a crazy Andy Kaufman Louise bit to start your show?" He goes, "Why? What did you guys come up with in the studio?" I said, "No, we have a crazy Andy Kaufman in the studio, in the lobby." He brings him in, and for the next hour and a half, we look for Louise in the city of Boston. She's a lady that He met last night, and she promised to meet him at 2 o'clock in the afternoon on that corner. She stood him up. So through the power of BCN, we found her. We get her at the station. And the both of them, she refuses to go back out. Mark had got from David Bieber a dinner, and we had to give the girl the dinner to go take her real boyfriend. And Andy left dejected and wanted just to ride back to Newbury Street, where Billy and I dropped him back where we left him around 2 hours later.
What a character.
That's BCN, man.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, Mark would come in around 1:30 in the afternoon, and he would have both Billy and I howling every day. And we looked forward to seeing him because it brightened our day. He was just as funny as any of the comics he had.
It was hilarious.
I have a Laura Grover story that I'd like to share.
Okay, thank you, Tami.
Laura, correct me if I'm wrong, but when Laura moved to Los Angeles to work at K-Rock, WBCN sister station, Tony Berardini had been GM at both stations for a time.
Right, that's right.
And you were worried about, making enough money to afford it, but Tony convinced you, oh, no, vegetables, produce is much cheaper in Los Angeles. You'll be fine.
I don't remember that, but I totally believe you. And I loved working for Oedipus and Tony in Boston. Working at K-Rock was not such an experience, and I ended up quitting after a year. But, it was interesting. It wasn't anything like WBCN. I mean,
It was, I think, for the West Coast, but I'm glad to have a history with both stations and with you, Laura.
But thank you. But even in it, just the family, it didn't have the family vibe that.
We've been talking a lot about the early BCN. I want to switch over to Adam 12. Adam, put your mic on and tell us, you were one of the last people on BCN. Yeah, what was your experience with that whole, from the beginning to the end, as far as getting?
Well, it's interesting, Charles. I was the last full-time disc jockey hired by Oedipus because I was part of that DJ search that the station had in late 2002 into 2003. And out of that, I believe 5 of us were hired. I was hired to host the midday show, and then 4 other DJs were hired to host on the weekends. Now, Oedipus was still programming. Steve Strick was still the assistant program director. Chachi was still promotions director. So it was interesting. And I mean, I know Bill was in here earlier. Bill Abbott was still on the air, and Shred and Albert were still on the air. So there was this interesting mix of kind of old guard versus middle guard versus new guard. So I really, I kind of am in this lucky spot where I got to experience kind of the very end of the Oedipus era of the radio station, because within a year and a half, he retired and left the radio station. And I also got to kind of preside over that ending with Charles. You probably remember when we reached out to you, we being the station reached out to you to be part of the 40th anniversary. You said yes, but on the condition that you would come on my show. You said, yes, I'll come back and be part of the 40th anniversary celebration, but I want to go on Adam 12 show. And you and I didn't know each other at the time. And the program director at the time came in to me and talked to me about that and said, would you like to have Charles on? I said, I'd be honored to. And it was that honestly, I was there 6.5 years, because I was there from February of 2003 through when the station went off the air in August of 2009. And that was certainly a highlight, Charles, was being able to have you there in the studio with me. And I always felt that was a really cool and kind thing for you to do, where I was definitely like a new guard, like end of the era BCN guy, but you kind of came along as a BCN OG, for lack of a better word, and said, yeah.
I'm looking at what's behind you, and I'm thinking it's a good thing that I did treat you well. What the hell is that thing over in the corner?
That's actually, it's not me I have to worry about. It's my 12-year-old daughter who has now gotten into hitting the heavy bag. So yeah, she's the muscle in the operation. So watch out.
Adam, can I just ask a question? Because it's always fascinated me. The transition when BCN left the FM broadcasting dial, it then became the sports hub? Is that what happened?
So because it was, by this time it was CBS radio. So CBS, they took BCN off the dial. They moved Mix, which was at 98.5 for all those years. They moved Mix to 104.1 because the thinking was they wanted Mix to take a bigger chunk out of KISS, and they figured if they gave Mix the better signal, they could do that on 104.1. They could do a better job of taking a run at KISS. And they knew that with the sports hub, they wouldn't necessarily need the strength of 104.1. They could get away with having the weaker signal on 98.5 because it was going to be such a niche radio format, and that people were going to listen to it no matter what, because it was sports talk on the FM dial for the first time in Boston.
So what was that transition from the last thing done on the FM WBCN to whatever it moved to at 104.1?
Tommy, you should have Bradley J should take over.
Bradley, if you're still on here, because Bradley was the last. He was the last one on WBCN on 104.1 FM before it switched over.
So where do you want to pick it up? Like an hour before the end, the last show?
The last song and the last word said.
I can't remember the last word said. The last song, which I was honored to get to choose, was Shine On You Crazy Diamond, Pink Floyd. Because it had to have a certain gravitas. It had to be for everybody.
Yes.
And it was a stressful thing to actually choose.
What was the mood of the last hour then? You don't need to get every song, but what was it?
So I was careful to set a mood that was not, oh, woe is us, poor us. I wanted it to be celebratory and not weepy. And that was the mood. It was celebratory. And what happened after the Pink Floyd song was it went to static, and then the new station started. But there's one thing that engineers know is that the static was fake. The static that you heard after the Pink Floyd song was fake because, as you know from Steely Dan, no static at all on FM. We had a cart with static on it, and I had to play the static cart, and then after a while the engineers switched it over, and that was it.
I wish I could have heard it.
There's a videotape on YouTube.
Between Pink Floyd and the static, there was also Daryl Martini saying Over and Out.
Yeah, there was Lisa. That's a good memory on that, Lisa, because there was John Riley had produced the montage where he encapsulated all 42 years of the radio station in about, I feel like it was about a 90-second production piece, maybe. And he worked in voices from as many of the DJs as he possibly could, along with, little bits of production and music. I'm sure it's floating around out there, and I'm sure people have shared it on some of the Facebook pages over the years.
Who was the production guy?
John Riley. Yeah, John Riley was the imaging director for years, but he was the last imaging.
I forgot to reach out to him. I would have loved to have reached out. I remember John Riley was good. He was great. He was before and I thought though.
That last show, by the way, is online, Bradley. Like you can type in BCN last show. It's on several different formats. It lives.
It's broken up into 4 parts, I think.
Yeah. And I know Laura has her hand up, but I just wanted, before Laura jumped in, just to put a little point on what Bradley said. I know a lot of the BCNers at the time were back in the studio with you, Bradley. I wasn't. I had gone down to the Middle East because another BCN DJ, Mark Hamilton, was bartending. He was bartending that night. So a bunch of us went to the Middle East while Mark was on the bar and listened to you and listened to the end of BCN together. It was a very communal experience, and kind of harkens back to a lot of what a lot of people have been talking about in this event tonight about the community that was created about the radio station. And I always thought, Bradley, that you were the right voice and the right personality. You did such a wonderful job of being the last person on the radio station and really turning it into a moment that transcended what was happening, but also just encapsulated and brought 42 years of it together in the best possible way.
There were not a lot of people in the studio, for the record, because I didn't want to be distracted because I was so afraid of screwing it up. Only it was Oedipus and Juanita.
Juanita was there.
And
I'm going to interrupt because
Adam, you make an excellent point about community. Sorry, Bob, but finish up. But let me just say, it's the community that to me represents the most important part. My best memories are of doing the remotes that used to be from the jazz workshop in Paul's Mall, simply because in the audience, there were people from the front office, there were salespeople, there were engineers, there were announcers, and there were some listeners. And that's what I remember the most, was those times when we would just mingle. I mean, it was great to see the music, of course, but it's existing with you folks and seeing the same faces that I have, and some of you haven't seen in 40 years, some I've seen more recently, but it's just an incredible opportunity to be reminded of what a magical time that was.
Yeah, the best for me, the best thing about the whole experience is to work, to actually be a professional with you guys. That, like Tami, I'm not going to name names, everybody. It just blows my mind that I got to do that.
Tami.
And Bradley, you were the longest reigning DJ. You were longer than Charles in the end, right?
28 years.
And so then you beat Charles, and you're the longest.
I think so, but I think Chachi is the
That's
longest.
what she said.
Chachi has been.
I knew that was coming.
Yeah.
See, a guy
You're
couldn't say
welcome.
that anymore. It has to be a woman that says that.
What's a Tami? Always a Tami.
Let's let Laura jump in. Laura's been had her hand up for a little
So,
while now.
Speaking to this, I remember the party that Charles organized a couple months after the station went off the air in 2009, and it was amazing. And because Catherine Lauren didn't show up, I'm going to tell a story about her and me that happened that weekend. We both flew out from California.
I remember this.
So when we were staying at the Hotel Commonwealth in Kenmore Square, we were so excited. And Charles, that was the best party. And I have come east for every single one that you've done. So thank you for doing it. But so we had a blast. We went back to the hotel. We woke up in the morning. We had eggs for room service. And then Oedipus picked us up because we were going to spend the afternoon at his house before flying back to California. And we both started feeling worldly sick in the back of the car. And about 5 minutes before Oedipus's house, Catherine just said, pull the car over. And she got up and she puked on the side of the road at a golf course. And then when we were on the final stretch to Oedipus's house, I said, now when I go in the front door, which direction the bathroom is. And it was just, we were both. And then when I was in the bathroom, really not being well, I heard this thunk, and Catherine had passed out in Oedipus' kitchen.
What was it? Was it the bad food?
It was the eggs. It was food poisoning. And
wow.
But she had to stay. She couldn't bounce back to go to the airport.
But I always found it so admirable that people like Tami and Mark Miller would come up for events. You know, a particularly poignant time was when Mark died, Parento.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they came in for the funeral, and Laura had you coming in for various events, you know, for screenings of Bill's film and so forth.
Yeah.
That,
Well, I actually knew Bill before BCN.
but I mean, just the idea
Yeah.
of having that great continuum and, you know, showing up for events, and the fact that we have all transcended the institution that brought us together, and we've stayed connected through the decades, really. And as Tommy was saying, it was almost like, you know, at the very beginning, and then subsequently, it was like that Beatles lyric of I am you and you are me and we are all together, in the sense that, you know, it was the audience, but it was also the musicians, and it was also our peers, that we were all kind of rooting for each other all along the way. And, you know, if it was a magic time that really never went away. And maybe the cruelest irony of it all is that after BCN ceased to be a music station, CBS, in the ownership of the call letters, assigned them to an AM conservative talk station in South Carolina.
Yeah, really.
Which up until about 3 or 4 months ago was still WBCN. And now I think that those call letters don't even exist now. They may be up for grabs.
No, David,
we own-
they did
That's
swap
that.
them just like 2 or 3 weeks ago. Beasley has
Oh.
put them on a station in Fort Myers, so they are
Yep.
still.
I think we
in
own the
existence.
domain for
We're
WBCN.com.
squatting on the call letters. Yep.
If,
Okay.
if it comes
but
back online, I told Destiny to grab the call letters and she said she did. So we can have WBCN.com. Sam, if that ever, I was a big fan of that, of the online station. No
Are we
commercials.
getting the band back together?
Yeah, come on.
The band back
That's
together.
right.
Hey,
Let's
Bob,
do it.
what were
Yes,
you,
but-
what, I interrupted you before. What were you gonna say? We haven't heard from Bob Flavor.
I'm so old, I already forgot. Oh, no, I know. Sam, you and I stopped into Bradley's show that night, that very last night, maybe an hour before he signed off, and it was great. Bradley, you did a great job signing the station
Yeah.
off. It really
Thank
terrific.
you.
Well, yeah, absolutely. That was the combination, the whole 3 days of multiple folks from the whole, all 40 some odd years by that point, coming back and doing shifts was really wonderful.
The hardest thing was not to start bawling.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah.
You
But
guys all got to cry at home.
Yeah.
I didn't. And
Sam-
I had to focus
that's a-
on like the job because it was tough.
No,
I thought I was going to
I
lose
did
it.
as well, Bradley. I mean, and Sam, you bring up an excellent point. Like those 4 days of radio were just amazing to listen to, and the fact that, the understanding was, that we were allowed to do that so long as everybody was on board with it and doing it the right way, and nobody got on the air and went off and did something they weren't supposed to do and put the license in jeopardy. Of all those personalities that came back, nobody did that, and we were able to have that. I can't think of an example of another radio station that's been able to go out like that. Like I can't. There's certainly been legendary stations over the years that have been able to have an extended goodbye, but not the way that we did with WBCN. It was one of a kind. And I'll say this.
Oh.
Yeah, yes. No, just real quick, Tami, just to kind of piggyback on what David was saying earlier about how, this community of WBCN, we keep coming together as the kind of like one of the last men standing at the station years ago. And again, Charles, I can't thank you enough for kind of making me part of this community, because there were so many of you that I didn't have the pleasure working with just because of the way the timeline shook up. But I've also been very blessed where I'm continuing to work in the broadcasting industry. I'm still on the air. There's not a week that goes by where somebody doesn't mention WBCN. I mean, yes, it lives with all the people that are on this call tonight and with the people that are watching it online. But there's not a week that goes by, whether it's on social media or someone calling into my radio show, that WBCN doesn't come up. It is such an enduring and endearing institution, and it's a blessing that we've been all.
You know what I want to do?
One of the other folks that we so miss, Danny Schechter, once told me that when the news dissector went to ABC and to CNN and went traveling around the world, doing reporting from anywhere on the planet, invariably, when he would be introduced to people, it would refer back to Danny Schechter, the news dissector from his BCN years. So timeless and worldwide. That's how.
Tami, what were you going to say?
Well, I was going to say something else, but now to piggyback on what Sam just said, JJ Jackson, when I met him at a K-Rock event, said that he was way more proud of being one of the first BCN disc jockeys than he was of being on MTV, one of the first MTV jocks. So
I would hope so.
Oh, so awesome. Hey, can I interject something?
What I want to do is I want to take a minute for a second. I want to
Wait a
take.
second. What are you saying, Shred?
I just wanted to say that I got to come back onto WBCN after telling the program director to go F himself. So that was like really
Yes.
nice.
Yes, you did. That's right.
That was my mistake.
What I want to do is I want to go around. I'm looking around at the whole gallery here, and there are some faces here that haven't had a chance to speak at all, and I sort of want to just really quickly go to them. I see one of our major sponsors, Sons, is here.
Yay!
Yeah. So Jason Steinberg, your dad sort of was one of the people seeing afloat. What was the direct tire? What was their motto? I forget.
We'll fix it so it breaks, of course.
Yeah.
Can you hear me, Charles?
Yeah, I heard it.
No, but I mean, that has, you know, that got me in the door, but that wasn't what kept me from getting, you know, well, that kept me from getting fired. But, you know, BCN had such an incredible impact on me. I mean, after 32 years, this is the family. This is my reunion. This is my high school, my college, my everything. And, you know, all of your parties that you've had. I mean, this has been you know, just seeing these people, you know, this was so formative for me that I Oedipus always said about the tattoo, I wish I was more into tattoos, but I've always been told you can't be buried in a Jewish cemetery. But
That's a
if
myth.
I could have a tattoo, I would have one of BCN.
You can be buried in a Jewish cemetery with a tattoo. Don't let that stop you.
Okay, well, I've got a lot of earrings, so.
Hey, we should all go get BCN tattoos tomorrow.
We get David Streppolino. David, why don't you say something? You were to people who aren't familiar with all of the BCN era, what did you do at BCN? Something to do with helicopters or traffic, or are you still working there on some level? What do you do?
Well, I'm a traffic reporter right now at WBZ, and for a short time, I filled in as a traffic reporter after you had fired me, which you fired me an awful lot, many times. But one time it actually took, and I think I don't remember exactly the timeline of it because, you know, a long time ago. But I think I was filling in for Patrick Murray, I think, was doing your traffic, and I filled in for him. And the one thing that really stands out for me is I was so nervous because I was always nervous around you and trying to please you because you were always so critical of everything I did for some reason.
I don't think you were alone.
What everybody did.
I think a lot of people have that sort of critique of working with me there.
Raise your hand if you were fired by Charles.
Getting fired seems to be a theme.
But you know what? It made me, looking back at it, all those firings and all the times the red pen came out to correct my Post-it notes that I would put in front of you so you knew what songs you were playing. All of those things made me better at doing everything. Because yeah, exactly. It was all tough, but it all worked out. And actually, even after you had fired me for the last time, you were really largely responsible for getting me a job with Eli at Smart Roots. But anyway, yeah, because you really pushed and lobbied for me. But I was filling in for Patrick on traffic, and I remember being so nervous and being on the air. And after you had fired me, so I wasn't part of your crew anymore. I was working for the radio station, getting paid for WBCN, and apparently, I don't remember doing this, but apparently instead of lower deck, I said lower dick. And I just remember as I'm talking, doing my thing, you're staring me down. And Sandy Leonardi also staring at me. And then everybody else in the room staring. And I'm, what the hell did I do? What did I do? And then after I'm done, you all told me, I said, no, I didn't say that. I didn't say that. And then I was completely thrown off by that.
I think Tammy and I used to get paid extra for saying that.
I'm saying, David, I want to hear you say it on BZ tomorrow.
No, I can't say things like that now.
And we
I'd
got Don Bertolino over in the corner. Don, unmute yourself and tell us a little bit about your Don. I remember you mostly with ZLX. What were you BCN?
I was never with ZLX, Charles.
Say it again.
I worked for you. I kind of bridged like Tom Couch. I started in '86 with you and lasted until I moved to San Francisco in '97. Just as you were going to ZLX, I never worked at ZLX. I worked your second to last show, but I basically wrote and produced Michigas for over 10 years with other people at times, of course. But no, I was most noted for you just really firing me constantly, pretty much. You know, I wanted to mention it too, because Dave just mentioned it, David Streffolino. Patrick was a really close friend of mine. I worked very closely with Patrick, and we can't have a little BCM remembrance without thinking of Patrick. I don't know if Bill Abbott is still on. Me and Patrick were roommates, and Patrick got his first air shift, and I was going to produce for him. And Patrick, of course, didn't show up in the studio, so I had to go rescue him while Bill played about 30 minutes of music till we woke Patrick up and got him on the air for his first air.
I just got a text message from Jeannie, Patrick's wife. Patrick, as most of you know, is no longer with us. We lost him many, many years ago. And anyway, Jeannie said, hey, this was great. I got to fly. I hope Steve Rude was able to record it. Nice job putting it all together. So far, looks like we're doing okay. Steve, how many people are still with us out there?
200. We have 278 listeners.
Wow.
And Bill Cates just joined us.
Hi, Mr. Cates.
Bill.
Hi, Bill. Bill, tell us a little bit about your BCN experience since you just came on, and I'm just laying it on you.
You're muted, Bill.
Bill.
Bill, unmute.
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 Unmute. Bill?
God
damn it, Bill, unmute.
He's working on it.
Wait a minute. Can I just say something?
Now I'm unmuting.
Can
Here
I
I
just
am.
say something? Hold it. This is why I fired people.
Hey man, I just got my COVID shot today.
Wait, which one?
Ooh. So I'm a little spacey.
Bill, which one?
The first one.
No, I don't mean that.
Which one is that?
Moderna, Pfizer, or Moderna?
The one in my arm, Charles. God, don't you know anything?
Totally fired.
No. I got the Moderna.
Okay.
Yeah, guess what? When you take that second shot, you better have flannel sheets because you're going to get the chills and you're going to get a little fever and you're going to be wicked tired. Just
Okay.
Once
This is
Charles
what
speaks
many
the
people
truth.
have
You will
said,
be
basically.
Superman, so that's a good thing.
I've heard
Yes.
different stories on that. Some people get that, some people go through it easy.
Oh my God! Look at all these people. Hello, everybody.
Anyway,
Tom and Tommy Hatches. Oh my
the side
God!
effects
Tommy and
mean
Peter
that
Choyce
it's working, that your body
Bradley
is
J.
working.
And oh my God!
So tell us your story, Bill.
You might know, Tammy.
So
I'm
who
sorry.
else we got here? So let's see.
Yes.
I just want to make sure that I've given everybody a chance to speak. Oh, I know. I have one question. Debbie Ullman's still with us? Yeah.
Yep, she's here.
So Deborah Ullman's here and Dinah Vaporin's here. And I've always wondered historically, because everybody always thinks that Maxanne was the first woman DJ on BCN, and she was not even close. She was there the longest, and she might have had.
Yes, she was
Wait a
definitely
second.
there
Wait a
before I
second.
came. I came after Debbie.
You
So
came after-
Debbie, were you first or was Maxanne first?
No, I was there a couple months, but Sam had already been reaching out to Maxanne by the time I started doing. Boy, it's so hard to remember. Particularly,
We were having a staff meeting and someone needed to be on the air and you were doing sales at that time, but I knew you were going to be good. You had gotten your third class license and we just threw you on the air as soon as you could figure out the basics of the board.
Oh, I remember that part. And actually, how I started getting a good break was when a bunch of you went up to Goddard in Vermont and tripped for a weekend of alternative media conference. And you need a whole mess of air staff fill-ins. So I got to do like 6 hours a day of programming.
And
The ties that bind.
I
Better
remember
living through chemicals.
I came down to Boston. I came down to Boston I was working at WPHD in Buffalo, and I had to get out of Buffalo. And I came down to Boston. I came down to my little audio tape. I gave it to Norm. I guess Norm listened to it and said, "Okay, you sound okay." And you were leaving, Debbie. You were moving on. So I remember coming into one of your final shows. I think it was maybe the last month you might have been there. And I came in the day I was there, the weekend I was there. And I watched you and listened to you. And I thought, oh my God, what am I going to do? I'm not sure I'm going to be able to do this. But anyway, you departed and I came down to Boston. And I will never forget the first day I walked into the Stewart Street studio and Danny Schechter was there, Norm was there, and Al Perry was there. And they were all there to welcome me. And it was like, I'm home. And of course, I learned so much tonight. I have to tell you that because I got fired twice, maybe 3 times.
I didn't fire you.
No, you didn't. Here's the story. The first time I got fired, Al Perry fired me and Norm, and you were very supportive of me. And then the second time, well, I don't think the second time I got fired. I actually think there was an agreement. It's time for me to go. And then I went to Charles. I'd had my first child and she was just 2 or 3 months old. I went to Charles. You were living in a basement apartment on Chauncey Street in Cambridge. And I came to see you and I said, Charles, I want to get back on the radio. So this was in 78 or something, 79, 78. Can't even remember when my daughter was born, 78. And you said, sure, I will help get you back on the air, but you got to go find a job somewhere else to get your skill set back up. So I went to WAAF and I worked there for maybe 5 months, 6 months. And then I came back to BCN and worked there part-time. And then gradually started to do news and moved into the news department. And Danny Schechter was there. And then I hired Katie. And then I got fired from the news department. Oedipus and Tony fired me that time because I kept doing the news on Charles's show and I kept going over my time. Every day I was going like, I can't even remember what the amount of time I had was, maybe 5 minutes, but I would go 6 minutes maybe, or 6 minutes and 30 seconds. Well, this, radio was changing big time by then. And they said, you're out. And I said, okay, it made sense for me to leave. And I left and have great fond memories. And then I saw Al at the first showing where Bill was showing the film in Somerville. And Al said to me, what are you doing here? I fired you. And I said, it was the best thing that ever happened to me, but it was great to see everybody. And I hadn't seen anybody over the years really at all. I stay in touch with Katie, but I hadn't seen people. And coming back because of the film has just really warmed my heart, and the support and the beauty of everybody is just great. It's just great. So I had to tell my story.
Yeah, great to hear more of it, Dinah.
That was nice.
Yeah.
So if we, Steve, right now, it looks like we've only got 1 page of people. Is that true? Everyone's left?
Yeah, people had to, it's getting late on the East Coast for folks.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
It's like last call at the bar, Charles.
Yeah, that's it. It's last call.
How
So
about
if
Bill
anyone's got
telling us?
anything to say, just raise your hand. You know how to do it. Go down below. Where
But two things. First of all, out of the last 55 years of my life, and that goes back into college, this family that we've been talking about is totally my college, my high school, and my family all wrapped together. I don't feel closer in my heart to any group of people more than we BCN wackos. And by the way, Debbie is the furthest east, I think, way down Cape Cod.
When I dream about radio, I always dream about WBCN.
Yep.
And I have a lot, especially now that I've been sober this last year, the dreams just been flooding, and I constantly have radio anxiety dreams where it's like, oh no, the record ran out, and the album, there's stacks of albums, but none of them are the right one.
You're not the only one.
Yeah,
It's-
I know.
you still
It's
have to
amazing
show-
how many of us have that.
Bill, you
Oh,
just
it's
reminded me of a
Is
real
Bill
story.
still on? Is Bill still on?
Yes.
Yeah. Hey, that's what I want to do. I wanted to switch over to Bill, but
Yeah, bring us up to date.
yeah, Bill, what's going on with your film? And tell everybody who doesn't know about your film.
Lots of good news. The documentary on WBCN is going to be on WGBH on May 6th at
Oh,
9
cool.
p.m. The
That's
good news
amazing.
is they're running the full, in full length. We had to trim a little bit. It'll be close to 2 hours.
Did
A
you
little
cut
bit of-
Charles out, I hope? Oh, sorry.
a little bit of irony, trimming back the obscenities in the sections where we talk about how BCN fought to be able to use, have freedom of expression. But
Do they play the John Lennon song "Working Class Hero"? They talk about it.
yeah, with a little kind of a mumble with the operative.
So they don't beep it. They don't beep it. They just put a space in there. Is that what they
Yeah,
do?
well, we can do what we want. We probably put a space because it's less intrusive. But no, that aside, it's going to run it pretty much close to length, and then on PBS stations in the fall. And then the big news is the book which is a companion book with about 300 images of BCN in Boston of that era, is coming out on MIT Press. But they just signed a deal with Penguin Random House to distribute their books. So it's going out through the main Penguin Random House channel. So they just put it up in pre-sales. So it's like Walmart and Target and Amazon. It's going to hopefully
Great.
get out there pretty widely. So it's very exciting. And
Good.
they
Congratulations.
loving it.
Great.
That's great.
And so for everybody who said along the way, not in this crowd, but who would be interested in a Boston radio station around the country? I think they sort of, you know,
With all the
established
publicity,
importance
the
of
band
station.
should really get back together. I
Well, I think we sort of have, you know.
WBCN.com. I was out there
Yeah.
all the time.
Well, that's a question everybody, you know, can it happen again? And it just, you know, I think we should actually, what's really great is I think I had forgotten how great the anniversary shows were. And I have a bunch of them. Maybe next year we can loop them.
I
But
mean,
maybe
well,
we
some
make
of us are still alive.
an annual tradition and, you know, collect as we used to, little bits and stuff we can play maybe if we do it again next
You know
week.
what was pretty
Audio.
amazing about this this broadcast? Steve, what time is it? 7 o'clock. So we went 7
3 hours.
3 hours.
3 hours. And
3.5
what was amazing about this 3 hours was at least for my, did somebody just blow their nose or a dog? Anyway, in my experience, this is the first time in maybe 5 or 6 years that I have seen this many people get together for so long, talking about so many different topics, and politics did not come up even.
Yay.
Yeah. True.
Why is something going on in politics?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Finally, nothing.
You know, first, lastly, I want to thank Steve Root for having the
Thank you,
idea that he put this together.
Yay.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Steve.
Fantastic work. I was so thinking this thing was going to just go, so many egos. How are they going to do this? We're going to be doing that. And I
We're family.
totally prepared for just total chaos and bullshit and awful.
Well, you remember the Christmas parties at Anthony's Pier 4 where we passed around the Mr. Microphone. That was a nightmare.
Drunk. Everyone.
That's 'cause
Totally
Mark
drunk.
Franco was there, Lisa.
If you can remember one of those parties, you really weren't there.
The 1960s.
Yeah.
Hey, can I say one thing before we take off?
Please.
Hello.
Please
Go
do.
for it, Shred.
So when I first got into WBCN in December 1987, she's not on the call anymore, but I got a letter that Scooter wrote me when I joined and she was leaving. And in the letter, she just said all the wonderful people that I'd meet there and how lucky I was to be there and what a special time that I was going to be in for. And that was it. And I survived as a part-time DJ for 20 years at WBCN. So you can blow that out your ass.
Thank you, Shred.
Before everybody goes, I would be interested in communicating with all of you personally, because we all have 1,000 stories that didn't get told tonight. And I'd be interested in some small group action or something like that.
Wait a second.
So we can.
Can we be on Bradley J Facebook Live then?
Hey, hey, hey.
Well, we'll figure something out. We can do something. But
Well, you're
there are a
using the
million
poll,
untold
Bradley.
stories. I want to hear every story everyone has.
We could get a really big bus and go on a road tour.
Bus?
Really big
Wait,
bus.
I know a guy with a bus.
That's right. Who has a bus?
When
Raise
the
your
vi-
hand. Who has a bus?
So let's all go to a concert in the big party bus or something. How about
Is there a
that?
store that we can buy BCN stuff? Like the calendars, they for sale still?
Nice.
Honestly, let me say one thing.
There
Selling those.
were 6, right? I have
So listen, the last of you guys are here. I want to just say goodbye to Dinah Vabrin and Stephen Rude. Thank you very much, David Bieber. And then look over there to Shred, Lisa Traxler, Sam Kopper, Bob, Rocket Bob Slavin, Deborah Ullman, Peter Choyce. Thank you, Peter, Tami, Heide, Laura Grover. Put your fucking light on. We don't even, you've been
in
She's
Docker
all
and Ducker.
goth.
I know,
She
she's been a
went all
ghost.
goth
And
on
the
us.
one that lasted the longest, unbelievably, Ken Shelton, right from the beginning with a
keeping quiet.
To be
mostly quiet.
Keep it quiet.
I can just tell
Hi,
you all-
Charles.
I
How's
can
everyone
tell you
doing? Hi,
all-
Tom
Hey, Riz.
Sandman.
I really
Ken.
Hi.
I can just tell you all secretly that one of the greatest things that happened, as far as I was concerned, being the guy who was supposed to host this, was I was thinking we're going to put a lot of faces together of a lot of different people, some of whom actually had really bad blood. And I was thinking it's going to go fucking crazy because somebody's going to talk about who so-and-so fired. And the way it all happened was people talked about people firing, and it was done in sort of a it's over. What
The
it is.
life experience.
It's family. It's family.
We're all buzzard meat now.
Buzzard meat, 10 points.
But Ken Shelton, to me, like Ken has in his mind, and maybe a lot of others, has been fucked over by a lot of management people, as has David Bieber. And both of you guys, I just want to say you took the high road, and it was pretty. This whole thing was pretty great. It was all pretty great. Bill Lichtenstein, thank you. Tommy Hadges, Joe Rogers, Bradley J, Tom Sandman, Adam 12, Chachi. You were supposed to be my co-host to help me out, but we didn't need help.
We didn't need that, but I do want to say a few things. I didn't get to tell any stories, so quickly before I go.
You know anything about the Beatles?
Yes.
This Beatles show is so
still
good.
on the air, Breakfast with the Beatles in 3 New England
The
states.
best.
That's
Yay.
because of Oedipus, and I appreciate that. But 3 things made me want to work at BCN. First of all, was the Beatles. I wanted to interview them. And then I loved Charles, Ken, and Mark. They were just the consummate professionals. And when I had the chance to be in the same room with these guys, I was blown away. I wrote a letter to Charles in 1981, and I got a call back, and the woman said, Charles loved your message, your letter, I should say, but the listener line is completely filled. But let me ask you some questions, and I'll put you on the list. And I said, okay. And so she says, do you drink? And I said, no, I never drink alcohol. And she says, do you smoke? And I said, cigarettes? No. And she goes, you smoke weed? I said, well, yeah, I enjoy weed. She goes, do you have any? And I said, I do. And she said, meet me at the station on Saturday night and you can start there. And I became Colin Nolan's producer that night. And then I met Tank, and he made me his assistant driver. And one night we were out late with the van, and we went into Matt Schaefer's little news studio and sat there for 3 hours. And we left it with the turntable going around with 4 little roaches on the turntable. And Matt Schaefer came in the next morning and tried to have us both fired, and we didn't get fired.
Oh, geez.
And then I met David Bieber, and he hired me on November 23rd, 1982.
Wow.
And Oedipus gave me a Beatles show. And one story about I loved working with Ken. I loved working with all of them. But Ken Shelton, one day my intern was typing a promo, and we were the Concert Connection. So I gave Ken the copy, and I recall, and Ken probably doesn't remember this, but I don't think Ken really pre-read his copy. And so he's reading the copy, and he gets down to the end, and it says, from BCN, your number 2 rock and roll connection. And he read that on the air, ran into Oedipus's office and insisted that I fire my intern, which that didn't happen. And then Parento, I would produce a lot of his broadcasts, and we had a little thing where, if he got a little spittle on the corners of his mouth, I'd just go like that, and he'd wipe it off. If he had cocaine around his nose, I'd go like that, and he'd wipe it off. And Parento was the first guy to put me on the radio. David Bieber hired me, and it was the greatest experience of my life, and I love him as a dear friend. Both Stephanie and I love David. And Jason was great to work with in promotions, and Tom Sandman and everybody else. And so I stayed till the end when 98.5, I stayed there for an extra 10 to 12 years.
And then in the buyout, they let me go because I made too much money for a 36-year employee. And so they let me go. And so now I still have my Beatles show on 3 states, but it was all because of Charles, Ken, Mark, David Bieber, Tank, and everybody on the board here. So thank you.
I remember
I love
first
sharing
meeting.
an office with you.
Your
Great
Beatles
school.
show kicks ass, Chachi. It's so
Thank
good.
you.
What did you
One
say,
of the things
Ken?
I learned, one of the things I learned from talking to everybody for the film and for the book, is I can't think of anybody that had a normal, like job interview and like their approach to BCN. Everybody's was completely different, but none of them were like, oh, there's an ad in the paper looking for an announcer. It was either Danny Schechter, JJ. So many people started off volunteering. John Brody.
Yeah.
I think almost everybody started off in some way volunteering. Joe was walked in on by Ray while he was on the air at MIT and offered a job.
I helped move the records from the Newbury Street studio to Stewart Street.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
Thank
Bill,
you,
your,
Deborah.
your interview was different, Bill. They said, "Have you been bar mitzvahed yet?" And you said, "Yes." You're hired.
So the Jews do control the media.
Bradley, Pete, Joe Rogers, Bill Cates, and Jason and David Struff. Thank you, everybody. So we're going to end it now. We're going to wrap it up.
Let me say one more thing.
We're doing this next week.
Let me say one more thing.
One more thing.
Tomorrow.
Let me say one more thing. When ZLX let me go and Sports Hub let me go, Barry Steinberg pulled his advertising from ZLX, put it on my new Beatles show, wrote a letter to iHeart saying, "How dare you fire this guy?" He called me up. He sent me the email that he sent to iHeart, and he pulled his advertising, advertised on my show for 6-7 months, a lot of money a month. And then iHeart sent him an email back. Oh, it was New York. And so anyway, Barry Steinberg, stepped up to the plate, advertised for a long time. And then he stopped, which is fine. And to this day, I still name him as a sponsor, no matter if he's paying for anything.
That's
because
great.
he was the only guy that really stood up to iHeart. It was great.
Wow.
Amazing.
You're
And
amazing.
the only other person he ever did that for was his son.
So what is this, the 54th birthday?
53rd.
53rd. Happy 53rd birthday, WBCN. And
Happy
everybody.
birthday, BCN.
We're gonna go now. I would say the creek don't rise and the good Lord's willing, but who knows? I don't want to go there because I have no what tomorrow's going to be like. But right now, I really am thankful that I got to work at BCN and made that decision way back in 1968 to be back in Boston. And so thank you, everybody. And
onward to WBCN.com.
We'll do it all again maybe sometime.
Yes.
Charles, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Charles.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Charles.
Charles.
Thanks,
Everyone. Happy birthday.
Love to all.
Bye.
Good night, everyone.
Bye.